Hello, everyone. Welcome to today. Sorry I'm a little late. Hello, hey John, what's going on? I got everybody in the chat today. How's everybody doing? All right. So today is the last day of testimony in the Depp Heard trial, and it's one of those things where I'm actually kind of sad because it's like the end of an era, right? We've been watching this madness go on all this time, and it's so interesting because who knew? It's been what? It's been 6 weeks since this thing's gone. 6 weeks, right? It's like my God. Oh, looks like my camera's acting up. Hmm, Hope that hopefully it's fixed. Let me look at it. Late, the lawyer strikes again. Oh, yeah. I was coming upstairs. Mega pint goes with anything. That's true. That's true, John. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Hey. The best coverage. I don't know. I try. What do you guys think about the video this morning? The video this morning about the DV arrest. I put that one out. I thought that was it. That was interesting. And they had the cop actually testify yesterday, which was good. So, hello from Paris, France. Hello. So we had a lot of very interesting stuff happen yesterday. It was pretty interesting stuff. TMZ essentially had to tell us that Amber sold them the tape. Well, they didn't tell us, but they had their guy, and he eventually made it. Just like, hey, we got the tape. And I like the way he did it because he didn't directly give up the source, but they gave you the implication of the source. So the way they did it was he said, well, there are three ways that we generally buy tapes. The one way is we'll buy it directly from the copyright holder. And if we do that, we buy it directly from the source, it's about 15 minutes. We get it and we put it out in 15 minutes. If we get it from a third party, it's going to take us about a couple of days, right? A week, where we got to buy it from, where we got to verify that they got the rights to it so we can buy it from them, right? So that takes about a couple of days. And then you had this last one where you can't verify where it got, and then that takes even longer, right? It may take a month for them to do that. So then they asked the TMZ guy, well, how long did it take for you guys to release this one? Did it take you the month? Did it take you a week? Or did it take you 15 minutes? And he said it took us 15 minutes. Allegedly saying they got it directly from the copyright holder. So who was the copyright holder at that time? Amber Heard. So that's essentially what we are talking about. Goody Nate. Hi from Australia. Hey, what's going on? TMZ guys shot back. That was amazing. And that was definitely a good part. That was definitely good. I was kind of surprised that the TMZ guy was able to shoot back at that, but it's interesting. John says the argument was a disaster. I don't think it was as bad as you're making it out to be, John. What's up with my camera? Let me see if I can fix my camera a little. All right, my camera's acting up a little bit, so I'm just gonna reinitialize my camera to make sure. So we're waiting for the trial to start while I reset up my camera. Here is what we are looking at on screen. So I'm gonna put this on screen so you guys can see what's going on outside the courthouse as of right now. Oof. So this is what we got. Lauren Crom. Let me put this on the screen. Here we go.
That was all that was dismissed. And because you're in an airport, if you're in an airport and you do a disturbance there,
All these people out here waiting. All right, my camera's back on. So there's really nothing going on right now. let me answer some questions because I know a lot of people have questions about what's been going on in the trial and a lot of the procedural stuff. So, just let me give you guys just a little overview of what is going on now. So, yesterday, it seemingly we concluded most of the rebuttal case for the defense for the plaintiff. Johnny Depp went back on yesterday, which I don't think really went well. I know a lot of people are going to say that it went well, that it was so great, that it was so amazing. Johnny Depp, whatever he does is amazing. I just don't think yesterday went well for him. I'm talking about in terms of his testimony. I think he had some good points, but I think there were too many bad points where the balance just wasn't on par. Right? You put him up, and if you put him up, it's a net positive, then that's great. But when you put them up and it's a net negative, it didn't really work out. Now, does that mean I think it hurt this whole entire case? No, I think this whole entire case is still on point because I think the evidence and the facts just support him too much. But I do think it was an unforced error in that sense. So, I know some people like to try to find every possible good point for one side or the other, whatever side you support. But I think at this point in time, we have to just be real about what we see. And what I see is yesterday, his testimony didn't go as well as the first time. And if you want to see it go well, look at the first time he went up and he was cross-examined. Then look at the second time. June says, what is the implication of knowing that Amber Heard, the one who sent the video to TMZ? Well, see, and thank you for the question. I think this is a great question. The significance is that this trial is a trial about both facts and credibility. So think about, and I'm going to kind of elaborate to a wider point, is that this trial is about what Johnny said happened to him and what Amber said happened to her, right? They're really the only two people who can testify to the relationship. And the problem is when that happens, excuse me, is that Johnny and Amber, hold on, let me see this. We have to take their word for it, whatever that is, whatever their word is. We got to take their word for it. And in doing that, let me move this so we can see the feed best. Sorry, I want to make sure we can see the feed best. So the issue is that we're trying to find out who's lying, whose word we're taking for it. So what the TMZ thing did was Amber went out and said straight up, right? I didn't give it to TMZ. I don't know how they got it. I don't know nothing. Right? I was not the source, essentially. If now we find out that was a lie, that's just another lie to hurt her credibility overall. She lied about TMZ. She lied about having a broken nose. She lied about having injuries. She lied about being dragged across the floor. She lied about, right? So it gets to the point, and I'm just going to say it. How many lies do we have to prove before you believe she's a liar? Right? That's essentially what we got going on today, right? How many lies do we have to believe Amber told before we believe she's a liar? And that's what the TMZ thing was so important. It was trying to say, hey, here's another mistruth she's told. Now, it doesn't mean she's telling a lie about everything, but it means that I can trust her less. And when in a he said, she said case, right? He says he didn't do it. She says he did it. Then credibility, whatever can affect that credibility matters. And I think the same thing with Johnny Depp. Yesterday, he had some credibility issues that he had to confront. And a couple of those credibility issues was simply, did you say this in this email? I mean, in this text message, did you say this? Johnny said no. They said, well, here's a text message. This is what the text message said. Did you say it? He said no. Matter of fact, he doubled down. He said, I absolutely would have never said anything like that. But then they had a text message to him saying it. So that's where that's the credibility game that we're watching unfold. And I think most people now, even most people in the chat would recognize that. I think the credibility game has been won by Johnny Depp's team. Even if you don't believe him, I just think you're at a point where you don't believe Amber Heard. So that was a long explanation, but I feel like I had to get everything out. Oh, Tatted, what's going on? If you define it like that, then other than all rocks are Amber Heard. Nate is big money. Morning, brother. Good morning. So,
Court of Fairfax County is now in session. The Honorable Anna Sarabia presiding.
Good morning, Judy.
Please come along.
Good morning. All right. Do we have any preliminary matters at this time? Okay, sure. You want to come forward?
Nate, are you sure regarding the text messages? When I looked at the text messages, I saw the incoming, outgoing. When I first saw it, I was like, hold on, those seem to be incoming messages, not outgoing messages. But that they weren't challenged, right? They weren't challenged by JD's side, right? They just weren't challenged. So if they're not challenging them, it seems like they were right. So I'm just as sure as the evidence that they've provided. They provided this evidence for it. The other side didn't rebut it. If the other side comes up and says, yes, it says, then I would believe it. But I think right now, I'm sure what I saw. And what I saw was the text messages and him saying he didn't send them, and it seems like he did. So that my opinion can change, but I think that's what the jury saw. Because just so everybody understands too, when at night, they're all on Twitter, they were saying, oh my God, this is it was like they were like, oh, online, oh my God, it's you can't send, you can send, so forth. They were pointing out the part that on the message that Johnny was allegedly sending, it said incoming, meaning that it was coming to Johnny, not going from Johnny. So, but I know the Twitter went wild with that, but I don't think that was made clear in the trial. So thank you, thanks for asking a question, but I just don't know. How do you send an incoming message? That's exactly that's what I'm saying. I believe when I saw it, I thought that was a problem, but his lawyers didn't make it an issue. So I'm suspecting if that's the issue, and my client didn't send messages, and now they're making it seem like he did send them, that would have to come out today. So hopefully they'll clear that up. Nate, you need thicker glasses, bro. Yeah, I gotta take. I'm actually taking these back. I'm waiting for an appointment. I gotta take these back because I can't. Now it's before I could read. Now they've changed the prescription a little bit, so it's throwing off my reading. But I have to kind of blow the screen up and put it down because it's weird. But maybe I gotta get trends. What's it called? Bifocals, maybe. I don't know. But I've never needed them before. But we'll see. But thanks for the concern. But I do. Hopefully, I can get some thicker glasses. Let me see this question. Isn't it said income? Isn't it said incoming on the message instead of outgoing? Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. That's what we're talking about. But again, I don't know if that's true. Right. I believe it's true. But I just don't know. What I saw versus what was testified to, totally different things. They got the jury coming in right now. I wonder what preliminary matters they took care of. Oof. The judge looks fresh this morning. Let me relax a little bit. Oh yeah, getting old sucks. Yeah, you have bifocals too? I hear you.
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Have your seat.
Oh,
all right. Your next witness.
We call Dr. Richard Gilbert.
Dr. Gilbert.
Dr. Richard Gilbert.
Yeah.
So essentially, St. Amber might testify today too.
Testify truthfully in this case for penalty of law.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Gilbert.
Good morning.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Richard Stephen Gilbert.
And what is your occupation?
I am an orthopedic surgeon and I have a subspecialty training in surgery of the hand and upper extremity.
Dr. Gilbert, where do you work currently?
I currently work in New York and Long Island at Northwell Health.
And you mentioned you have a specialty. Can you tell us a little bit more about what your specialty is?
So after medical school, I trained in orthopedic surgery and I did an orthopedic surgery residency. And for a year thereafter, I did a hand and upper extremity surgery resident fellowship. And so my practice for the past 22 years has been limited to surgery of the hand, wrist, and elbow.
And I think you may have gotten ahead of me there, but how long have you been practicing?
22 years?
Okay. What percentage of your practice over the past 22 years has involved surgery?
Approximately 1/3 of my practice.
Okay. And other than that 1/3 that involves surgery, what does the rest of your practice entail?
The rest of my practice entails some academic work, but mostly seeing patients in the office, seeing them either pre or post-operatively. A large portion of hand surgeons treat patients non-operatively.
In terms of the surgeries that you do, can you describe for us the types of surgeries that you will perform?
So again, I limit my practice to hand, wrist, and elbow. I would say approximately 75% or so of my practice is limited to the hand itself. And this really varies from anything from conditions like carpal tunnel syndrome to tendinitis to injuries such as amputations, fractures, sharp lacerations, etc.
Over the course of your 22 years of practice, how many surgeries would you estimate you've performed?
I perform about 300 to 400 surgeries a year, so a rough estimate would be approximately 10,000, maybe a little less.
Where are you currently licensed?
In New York.
And how long have you been licensed in New York?
He's a New Yorker like me.
I have been licensed in New York since 1994, so that would be 28 years.
Oof.
And do you have any certifications?
Yes.
And can you tell us about those?
I am board certified by the American Board of Orthopedic Surgery, and I have a certificate of added qualifications in surgery of the hand from the American Society for Surgery of the Hand.
When did you receive your board certification?
2002.
And can you describe for us what current positions you hold?
I am currently an assistant professor of orthopedic surgery at Northwell Health, and I'm also the president-elect of the New York Society for Surgery of the Hand.
In what professional organizations are you a member?
I'm a member of multiple orthopedic
Thank you,
organizations,
Band-Aid,
including the
I'm glad you enjoy it.
American Board of Orthopedic Surgery, the American Association of Orthopedic Surgery, and the American Society for Surgery of the Hand, as well as the New York Society for Surgery of the Hand.
Have you published any articles in your field?
Yes, I have.
Have you testified as an expert before?
Yes, I have.
Can you ballpark for us how many times?
Certainly less than 10 over the past 22 years.
Your Honor, at this time, we'd like to offer Dr. Gilbert as an expert in the field of orthopedic surgery, specializing in the hand.
All right, any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
So moved.
So now he's an expert. So what's he going to testify to?
So, Dr. Gilbert,
Now remember, the other side has
what work
has less
were you
than an hour.
asked to do in connection with
So-
this case?
I don't think they can.
So I was
cross them
asked to
too much,
review
'cause they got a rebuttal. They got a
medical
they gotta put a
records,
rebuttal kit.
radiographs,
So now they have
pictures,
an hour left for that.
as well as testimonies and
So I don't think
depositions
there's gonna be too
related
much of a
to
cross on this
Mr.
guy.
Depp's finger injury.
Okay. And to your understanding, what is Mr. Depp's explanation of how his finger was injured?
He describes that he was in Australia and his right hand was over the side of a bar when a
So they
vodka
have an
bottle
hour
was
left.
thrown
JD has
at
7.
his hand, injuring his right middle finger. And he describes that the vodka bottle exploded.
Are you aware of other explanations for that injury?
There have been multiple other explanations, but I think the one that was brought out was by Ms. Hurd, who believed that Mr. Depp was holding a landline and out of anger was punching it against the wall, and this resulted in his right middle finger injury.
Based on your review of the medical records and other documents in connection with Mr. Depp's finger injury, how would you describe the nature of the injury to Mr. Depp's finger?
Well, the nature of the injury was he had what we describe as a comminuted fracture of the distal phalanx, meaning there was a fracture of the tip of the finger, and comminuted meaning that there were multiple pieces. So this is some type of blunt force with a high mechanism of injury. He also sustained loss of the tissue along what's called the ulnar side of the finger towards the little finger. And this appeared, based upon my review of the pictures, to be some type of sharp laceration because it represented a clean edges of the wound.
Can we take a look at Plaintiff's Exhibit 60? And pull up to go to page 3. And Dr. Gilbert, are you familiar with this document?
Yes.
And what is it?
So these are 2 radiographs, x-rays of Mr. Depp's finger, his middle finger.
Okay. Sorry, just to stop you, but Your Honor, may we publish this to the jury as a demonstrative?
Any objection? All right, we'll identify it as 60, page 3, and publish to the jury.
And Dr. Gilbert, sorry to cut you off
that's
there. Can you just tell a jury what we're looking at here in this
We're looking
X-ray?
at 2 x-rays of Mr. Depp's right middle finger after the injury. And towards the tip of the finger, there's a fracture, again, what I described as a comminuted fracture, meaning there are multiple pieces at the tip. There's also a transverse component to the fracture closer to the joint.
Objection to fingers here, sir.
In your view, what types of mechanisms can cause this sort of injury?
So this is a mechanism of injury that has high velocity or force, generally a crush type injury. A simple fall would not result in a comminuted fracture such as is seen in these x-rays.
And we're using the term comminuted fracture. Can we just define that quickly for us?
So again, comminuted, and it's not particular to a finger, is a medical term for a fracture that has multiple fragments.
In your opinion, could this injury have been sustained in the manner Mr. Depp described?
I do believe so.
And how might that work? How might a thrown vodka bottle produce an injury like this?
So vodka bottle, which is a hard object, would have crushed the tip of the finger, resulting in the comminuted fracture. And in addition, as the vodka bottle broke, the glass would have lacerated the finger, resulting in the soft tissue loss that was also seen with this injury.
What's your assessment of the description of the cause of the injury offered by Ms. Heard?
I think that's highly unlikely.
And why is that?
Because one, in general, when an injury is caused by punching against a wall or a hard object, it is extremely rare to see an injury to the tips of the fingers, which is seen with Mr. Depp's injury. Generally, you're holding something with a fist, and that in general leads to injuries most commonly of the knuckles here, or fractures of the
So if I'm
metacarpal.
holding
these
something,
boxer
my
fractures.
tips go around it.
Second most common after those would be injuries to these, but as you can see, if you're holding something and hitting against something, it is very unlikely that the tips of the fingers will be injured. In addition, just taking into account the radiographs and the pictures of the injury, I would not believe that solely a blunt force against a wall would result in the soft tissue loss.
What other injuries, if any, would you expect to see on Mr. Depp's hand if the injury had occurred as Ms. Heard described? So
if that were the cause of the injury, you would certainly, that would be a dorsally directed. So this is the dorsal in the back of the hand as opposed to the palmar side. So if you're punching against something, you would certainly expect an injury to the nail bed. And those are always seen in those type of injuries. If there is an injury to the tip of the finger, which again, I said is rare. So you would see either a loss of the nail or blood underneath the nail called a subungual hematoma.
In your review of the medical records, did you see any sign of anything like that?
None whatsoever.
In your view, is the injury?
Ugh,
Can you explain to us exactly why you think the injury
it's a tough question.
is consistent with Mr. Depp's description?
Well, again, he describes his hand being held over a marble bar, which is a firm,
Hard surface.
something firm, unyielding, and the bottle hit against the finger. So basically the finger was crushed, resulting in, again, what I described as a comminuted fracture. And as Mr. Depp described, the bottle exploded. So it's certainly reasonable that the glass that exploded as well led to the soft tissue loss along the ulnar aspect of his finger.
And that makes sense. That makes sense.
Now, did you observe the testimony of Dr. Richard Moore?
Yes, I did.
And he testified about Mr. Depp's finger injury as well.
Correct.
Tell me,
Did you
don't shade at
agree
the other
with
guy.
Dr. Moore's testimony?
Certain parts of his testimony I did, yes,
Okay.
but not all of it.
Focusing on the parts that well, first of all, why don't you tell us what you agree on?
Well, I agreed in terms of his interpretation of the x-rays, saying that he had a comminuted fracture and this was some type of high force injury.
Okay. What did you disagree with?
Well, I disagreed with several things that he said. He first said that he does not believe that the mechanism of injury could be, as described by Mr. Depp, holding the hand on the side of a marble bar, because he said it was all a palmar injury, and there was a palmar component to the injury. I'm talking about the soft tissue loss, but there was also a dorsal, meaning the back of the finger. So the soft tissue loss was actually, if you looked at the pictures which were shown when Dr. Moore testified, the injury goes like this. So it's an angled or an oblique type injury. And there's no way that anybody could determine whether or not it was a palmar directive force, meaning from the palm side, or dorsally directive force. But certainly either are plausible.
Okay. Anything else come to mind that you disagreed with?
Well, he also
Thank you so much,
described
man.
that this was well, he thought that this was a pinching, or what he described as an avulsion type injury. And that's referring to the soft tissue loss. That's certainly possible, but if you look at the pictures that were shown when he testified, the laceration looked fairly clean. There were clean edges, it was not jagged. And generally when you have an avulsion or a pinch type injury, you see a very irregular border to the skin. It's pinched off, you can imagine, as opposed to something that's cleaner that would be lacerated by, let's just say, a piece of glass or a knife or whatever. And that's more consistent with the pictures of Mr. Depp's injury.
Mm.
And we're using the term soft tissue loss, and just to make sure we're on the same page, can you just tell us very quickly what you're referring to there?
Right, so
Yeah, it's
there
their,
were two
it's their
two
audio.
components to this injury.
I think
One,
they
the
said
fracture of the bone, and
There's
two,
like a
he had
little echo
loss
in
of
their part.
the soft tissues so that the bone was exposed. So that amputated part that was found at the bar.
Yeah, the echo is their audio.
Now, you were saying that Dr. Moore testified that this was an avulsion, and meaning a pinching injury, right?
Correct.
Why do you believe it's more likely that it was a laceration?
Well, again, in general, a pinch type injury results in one, much more damage to the remaining tissue, but the remaining tissue is usually very irregular. The borders are jagged, and that's not what was depicted in the pictures.
No, the echo is not me. The echo is, this is the original stream. They have
Dr.
an
Moore
echo.
also testified that he thought a
See,
vodka
they
bottle
cleaned it
might
up.
not
Their
have
echo's off
sufficient
now.
force to cause the injury here. Is that your understanding of his testimony?
Correct.
What's your response to that?
I certainly believe that a vodka bottle that was thrown from a distance against a hand that was resting on a marble bar is more than sufficient force to result in this fracture and soft tissue loss.
That makes sense. That definitely makes sense.
Now, in looking at the medical records and the pictures of Mr. Depp's hand, What was the condition of his nail?
There was no injury to the nail.
And other than what you've already told us, how does that factor into your analysis, if at all? The fact that there was no injury to the nail?
Well, it makes it highly unlikely that the mechanism of injury described by Ms. Heard resulted in this injury, because you really would always see an injury to the nail and or nail bed.
Do you have any opinion regarding the direction of the injury?
Well, it's certainly based upon the soft tissue loss. It's an angled injury, or what we call medically an oblique injury, because the soft tissue loss is at an angle. He lost some of the tissue on the back of the finger as well as the palm side, primarily along the palm side. But other than that, you can't make any assumptions. Unless you saw a videotape of this injury, nobody could tell you definitively what the direction of the injury was.
Oh, interesting.
Dr. Moore also commented on the absence of fragments of broken glass in Mr. Depp's injury. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And how does the absence of glass fragments factor into your analysis?
It really doesn't. I've seen hundreds, if not probably at least 500 or more glass injuries. And I would say probably the majority, you don't see glass in these injuries. It is much more common to see glass embedded in the wounds when you're talking about very fine glass. So if, just say a wine glass would explode or something of that nature, where you get little tiny shards. But in general, when you have thick glass, such as you see in a bottle or a pane of glass, you generally don't see, because they break into bigger pieces, and you generally don't see the glass. But you certainly can, but it's not surprising that you don't.
Can you definitively state how this injury occurred?
No, nobody can definitively state.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
All right, now they only have an hour left. How much time do you spend crossing this guy? And they got to also put
Thank
on
you,
a
Your Honor.
rebuttal case. Let's see what they do.
Good morning, Dr. Gilbert.
Good morning.
Start the clock.
Now,
9:23.
you're being paid $1,000 an hour for your work on this case, correct?
$1,000
correct.
an hour. Boom.
And you agree, just to sum up how Mr. Moniz finished, you agree that the finger injury could have been caused by any number of things, right?
Yes,
And you're not offering an expert opinion on what you believe caused the finger injury, correct?
correct.
Great.
And you're aware, you said a few times Miss Heard's account or Miss Heard's explanation, right? You remember saying that?
Yes,
You're actually aware that
Yes
Amber
or no?
has said she doesn't know how he lost his finger. You're aware of that, right?
yes,
So when you were just talking about Miss Heard's account or Miss Heard's explanation, you're aware she's never actually given an explanation for how she thinks he lost his finger, correct?
no,
You're
Not
aware that Miss
correct.
Heard
No, you're
testified,
not
and this is from your deposition, you're aware that she testified she doesn't know how he got his fingertip chopped off. You're aware of that, right?
Asked and answered, Your Honor.
That's true. He did ask the answer.
no, I'm
twice.
not. I reviewed the records, and in one of the testimonies depositions that I reviewed, it was described that that potentially it was lost when he was punching against the wall with a phone.
That's what she said.
And on
is
that,
what she said.
the last point there, I think we agree. Miss Heard's testified in this trial and previously that she saw him smash a phone to smithereens, a wall phone.
Yes.
You'd agree with that, correct?
Correct.
But she doesn't know if that was what caused him to lose his finger. You agree with that, correct?
That's true. She
I
said she wasn't sure.
Agree. I cannot speak for her, but yes.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor?
Rotten
Yes,
Boy's
sir.
putting two minutes. We're 2 minutes into his cross, and he's gotten all these questions out. You can tell he's very tight, very clean. Let's just boom, boom, boom. Time. He doesn't have more time, so he's just got to shoot daggers.
Dr.
and get out.
Gilbert, you gave a deposition in this case on March 17th, correct?
Correct.
You were under oath in that deposition. You swore to tell the
Correct.
truth, correct?
Correct.
Okay, if you could turn to page 61, please.
All right, let's see
You
what.
see there are four pages per page of paper.
Okay.
It's on page 16 of the document.
Page 16.
Okay.
Okay, in line 9, you're asked a question, and then Amber's response to that question, that's the line 9. Can you read that, please? Answer, I do not know. I did not see his finger go off. Question, and Dr. Gilbert, are you aware that Amber did not see Mr. Depp's finger go off? Answer, I mean, I'm aware that, well, I am from reading this. I'm aware of the mechanism that she claimed would cause the finger injury. Question, but have you read anything so far that indicates she doesn't know how the finger injury happened? Answer, so far from what I'm reading here, yes. Did I read that right?
Yes.
And you've heard no testimony in this trial from Ms. Hurd that the finger injury was definitively caused by the phone, so that she doesn't know, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And you'd agree that the fingernail was uninjured. You said that, right?
Correct.
And the nail bed was uninjured,
Correct.
correct? But the area under the fingernail, in the pulp of the finger, that's where the injury took place, right?
It was not isolated to the pulp, no.
But it didn't injure the fingernail. That's my
Correct.
question. Okay.
Yes.
And under Mr. Depp's alleged theory, Amber threw a vodka bottle at him from 10 feet away or so, right?
4
Correct.
minutes in, people.
And you testified you have no way to determine the angle that the bottle was coming from,
Correct.
right? But she threw it on a downward trajectory, correct? She didn't, there's no allegation, you've never read anything that she somehow underhanded it so it came up to his finger, right?
Correct.
And there's no way to tell, as you testified, what exact direction it came from, right?
Correct.
And the glass exploded, but you've already testified there was no glass in the wound, right?
Correct.
You haven't read any record of that in any medical records, correct?
Correct.
You also haven't read anything about there being cuts on the rest of his hand, right?
Correct.
And there was no glass found anywhere on the rest of his hand, correct?
Correct.
No bruising or injury on any other part of his hand other than the tip of his middle finger.
Correct.
And somehow, under Mr. Depp's theory, that bottle hit the bar and his fingers, but didn't damage the fingernail while it amputated the area under the nail, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And your explanation of that is that you believe that his hand must have moved at some point during the force of the injury. Isn't that correct?
No, I said it could have, but I did not say that it did.
No, you believe that it did, don't you?
I said that it likely did, but I was not there and I don't have videotape of the injury, so I can't determine that definitively.
Okay.
That's
Well,
a good answer.
Let's turn to page 25 of your deposition, please, on page 7.
All right. So he just now, so he's going to impeach him, but remember, the doctor said he believes it's likely, but
Sorry,
couldn't
Page
make
25
it
and
definitive.
26. So it's page 7
Not
of the
definitive,
document.
but
Sorry if I
he
was
believes
unclear
it
on that.
happened that way, but he's
problem.
not definitive. So let's see the impeachment. So this is supposed to say he said something different. Let's see what he said.
I'm there.
Under oath.
Okay. Line 18, question, and to be clear, by, quote, sitting in that position, you mean hand down, palmar side down. Answer, that's what he claimed. I mean, according to the history, yes.
Okay.
Question, and would it matter if Mr. Depp's hand was palmar side down? Answer, not really, because it really, and I discussed this, it really just depends upon the angle at which the injury occurred. And as well, you can't determine if his hand had moved at some point during the force of the injury, which I believe it probably did, which I
Okay.
didn't get into in my note here. But question, and why do you believe that? Have you read anything in any of the materials to suggest that? Answer, no. Just that if it completely hit on the back of the finger, then he would have had a nail bed injury, which he did not. Did I read that right?
Correct.
That was testimony you gave under oath a month or two.
Correct.
I
So
don't see
even
how that
though
impeaches
you
what he
have
said.
never read anything that suggests Mr. Depp's hand moved, his hand moving is the only way that you can fit your testimony into what Mr. Depp wants you to testify to about how the injury occurred, isn't it?
No, that's incorrect.
Okay, that's what you testified to, that if his hand hadn't moved, that there would be a nail bed injury, correct?
That is incorrect. That's not what I testified.
In
That's not
fact,
what.
Dr. Gilbert, there's another explanation
He said it,
for how Mr. Depp somehow
he said, no,
suffered
that's
an injury
incorrect. No, that's
that
incorrect.
didn't injure his nail one bit, but injured underneath the nail. And that explanation is that it didn't happen how Mr. Depp says it did, correct?
I cannot make that assumption, nor can you.
No further
That's
questions.
a good,
All right, redirect.
That's a good question. But redirect is easy though. Just go explain what you meant by, when he asked you that question.
Dr. Gilbert, just very briefly.
Yeah, it's going to be a brief one.
The absence of other cuts on Mr. Depp's hand, how do you factor that into your analysis?
It was less than 10 minutes.
You certainly can see an isolated finger injury with any type of injury, and I would say any other host of mechanism of injuries, you'd more likely see other. So again, if you're, I'm just using this as an example, if you're punching against a wall, you would more likely see multiple injuries to multiple fingers. It really just depends upon how the bottle or how the mechanism of the injury impacted the hand at that point in time.
Ms. Heard's counsel made a point of emphasizing that there were no bruises or other injuries on the hand, right?
Correct.
And how does that fact affect your analysis, if at all?
Well, it doesn't discount anything, but it certainly makes other potential causes of injury more unlikely, meaning punching against a wall or getting the hand slammed in a door or something like that.
Okay. And your discussion of Ms. Heard's explanation of the alternative cause of the injury, was that based on anything other than Ms. Heard's statements?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Doctor, you can have a seat in the courtroom or you're free to go. Thank you. You can just leave it there. That's fine. Thank you, sir.
Let me get these super chats while we got a nice
All
little
right.
break in the action.
Your next witness.
Thank you for all the coverage in the case. It's been insightful and entertaining. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Band.
Plaintiff rest, Your Honor.
All right, plaintiff rests the
Oh,
rebuttal case.
They
All
rest
right.
the rebuttal case. Here we
Defendant
go.
counter plaintiff rebuttal case. Sure.
Who are they going to call? All right, so now we get into who are they going to call. Now, they wasted 10 minutes to deal with that cross, and now they got probably about an hour left. And you got to put on a rebuttal case. Who do you put on? Let me answer these super chats. Oh, let me answer the super chats first. But this is question. If you were Amber Heard's counsel, what would be your plan of attack with the minimum amount of time? Exactly what you just saw. Get in, 5-minute cross, get out, put on a rebuttal case. If Amber's going to, if I got to put Amber on, I'm putting her on now. If I don't have to put her on, I'm not putting her on. You only have an hour left, and you got to get rebuttal witnesses up there. Who are you going to put? You're going to, you just don't have the time. So I think it's going to be tough. I would be trying to win the Johnny's case rather than trying to win my rebuttal case. My rebuttal case is not important right now. It's making sure I don't have to pay Johnny. That would be that's my mentality going into this. Mary Kelly says, what do you think of cross yesterday regarding the amount of glass and the lack of handle in the images? It seemed petty to me. It was, but again, they're not trying to win on the point. They're trying to limit his credibility, show Johnny is not credible, and the jury is less likely to believe him. So I think for this point, Mary, I would have actually had an actual bottle so people could see the handle and see what I'm talking about. Just showing a picture of glass all over the floor is different than saying this is the bottle, right? And the bottle has a clear handle before it was broken. So then that would knock out all that nonsense. They didn't show that demonstrative, but this is something that you should be prepared for, right? A broken glass, the bottle was right now. We don't even know what the bottle looks like. I think that would be powerful if we saw what the bottle looks like that did this damage. Mary Kelly for another $4.99 says, is the recording that has Amber apologizing after the incident in evidence? Yes, I believe it is. Yes, I believe it is. We actually heard it in court, so that is in evidence. So strategy wise, I'm just going to say it. I don't know. I wish two things. Number one, I wish I could be up there listening. But number two, if I'm working for Amber, my plan going in now is going to be like, oh my God, what the hell am I going to do? Right? We only got an hour left. We got to put on a rebuttal case, and then we got to close. And then obviously, whoever we put up there is going to get crossed to death. And then if they get crossed to death, then we're going to have another issue. So what do we do? I think about the place they're in. I don't think they're going to win their counterclaim, right? I think the counterclaim is nonsense. I think the counterclaim is a loser. So if you're not going to win, if you're like me, just like I think 99% of the people watching the case don't believe he's going to win the counterclaim. I'm assuming they know he's probably not going to win the counterclaim. So why am I still wasting my time with the counterclaim? So in this rebuttal piece, I would try to, in some way, bolster the counterclaim because that's what I'm supposed to be doing, but also really throw shade at Johnny's case because I think that's the liability here, right? The thing I'm most afraid of is losing Johnny's case, right? I'm hopeful I can win my case, but reality is I'm likely going to lose Johnny's case. So my attack would be trying to continue to work on the Johnny case with this last hour, right? Yeah. Well, I think it's already set up for appeal. I think you have so much here where this can easily go to an appeals court. You know, whether this is defamatory, whether the statements are defamatory, there's a fertile ground for appeal here. I would definitely throw it into it. You know, if I'm Amber's attorneys, you know, appeal is the first thing coming out of our mouths if we lose, right? We'll see you at the appeals level, and then then we might be having to do this again. But yeah, we'd be definitely appealing if we lose. So now, I don't know. I think the defense, if I was the defense, do you just rest the case? Do you not put on a rebuttal? Because I think if you don't put on a rebuttal, you lose. Here we go. Let's see what they're going to do.
All right, rebuttal evidence.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Murphy?
You call Mr. Julian Acker.
All right. Mr.
All right.
Ackert?
So remember, we got an hour left. It's about 9:37, and they got a rebuttal. So we're starting as soon as they start. Let's set the clock.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to testify truthfully in this case for penalty of law?
I'm going to hit the clock as soon as they start.
Good morning.
Morning.
Can you please state your name?
Here we go.
Julian Ackert.
And can you please describe your educational background following high school?
I have a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from the University of Virginia.
What is your profession?
I am a computer forensics investigator.
Where are you employed?
I work for a company called iDiscovery Solutions, or IDS.
And what is your title?
I'm a managing director at that company.
What services does IDS perform?
Because
IDS provides consulting, expert testimony, forensic analysis, data
You're right. You're
analysis,
100% right.
electronic data review and production services,
I wouldn't be going after
all to the
counterclaim.
business and legal community.
What, if any, of those services performed by IDS have you performed?
I perform all of those services.
How many years of experience do you have in computer forensics investigation?
I've worked in the industry for 20 years.
Can you please?
So I'm muting this for one thing. What they're doing is they're not going after the counterclaim, right? Because they're saying the pictures are false. They're going both after the counterclaim, but also throwing shade at Johnny's case. So just to let you guys know.
As well as analysis and metadata analysis of the evidence that I extract.
You mentioned collecting data from forensic collections. What material are you forensically imaging?
This would be any type of material that stores digital evidence. An iPhone, an iPad, a tablet, a laptop, a cloud account, your Gmail account, anything that has digital evidence.
Have
You
you
gotta speak
published in
fast.
your areas of expertise?
Yes, I've published on data preservation and collection and analysis
Well,
strategies.
That Amber team.
Have you ever given any trainings or
waste.
presentations to other individuals
They
in
throwing
the
shade at the
e-discovery
pictures. They
area?
think the pictures are dangerous.
Yes, I have. I do trainings and presentations to lawyers through continuous learning education.
See,
What,
at
if
least-
any, professional certifications do you have?
I have a GIAC GCFE, that's the GIAC Certified Forensic Examiner certification.
And what were the requirements of obtaining that certification?
To obtain that certification, you need a minimum number of hours in the field, as well as you need to pass a test with a certain degree of, a certain percentage of passing.
Do you belong to any professional organizations?
I do. I'm a member of a conference called the Sedona Conference. It's a
Sedona
conference that is a group of legal professionals, judges, and technologists, and we discuss the intersection of law and technology
So
and
now we're going to talk
technology
about
issues
photos
in the
again.
legal
With
community.
our last hour left.
Have you
we're
previously
diving into
served as an
photos.
expert witness?
Yes, I have.
And
Let's
when
see
did
how-
you first serve as an expert witness?
Let's see how fast they can
I
get
believe that would have been
qualified.
around 2009 was the
in.
first time I served.
Have you previously been qualified as an expert witness in the field of computer forensics?
Yes, I have. I've been qualified probably a half dozen to a dozen times in both federal and state court, including this court right here.
And has a court ever declined to qualify you as an expert witness?
No, they have not.
Your Honor, I offer Julian Acker as an expert in the field of computer
I got
forensics.
that done in 2 minutes.
No objection, Your
All
Honor.
right, so moved. Could you just spell your last name for me, Mr. Acker?
Ackert, A-C-K-E-R-T.
Thank you so much,
I
sir.
got the one guy who's bad at cross doing the cross for this.
Mr. Acker, what is forensic imaging?
Forensic imaging is the process of capturing the data on a digital device in a forensically sound manner.
And how is a forensic copy created?
Using specialized software that's available to forensic investigators, we're able to collect the data from devices, and that software may vary depending on the device, like a phone or a laptop.
What type of information does a forensic image collect?
It's meant to really collect everything on the device. So for example, on a laptop, it's going to collect your documents, your emails, your photographs, your documents like Excel spreadsheets, PDF files, any applications that you ran, the history of what you've opened or looked at on the laptop, as well as all of the metadata for these different types of electronically stored information files.
All right.
And does any other information accompany that information that's collected?
Typically with a forensic image, you're also going to get log files. Log files are files that help you validate the forensic image and verify that it was a forensically sound data collection.
And how do log files enable you to do that?
Log files list information within the files. Sometimes they're even embedded within the images themselves, but they provide verification information that allows you to authenticate the image and the data on the image.
What is the purpose of creating a forensic image of devices or data?
In order to extract and analyze data forensically for the courts, you need to create a forensic image of the data first and gather the data from the forensic image.
And what, if any, specific types of data are collected in that image and extraction?
It's going to be any type of data that comes from the image, whether you're extracting photographs or documents or spreadsheets or anything of that nature.
Do you recall Mr. Neumeister mentioning the term hashing yesterday?
I do.
What is that?
Hashing is essentially a digital fingerprint of a file. It's an evaluation of the binary ones and zeros, or how the file is stored on a hard drive, and it examines the ones and zeros in a manner that gives every file a digital fingerprint, essentially, and identifies the uniqueness of the file.
And what, if any, applicability does hashing have to the visual appearance of data?
Hashing has nothing to do with the visual appearance. For example, if I had a Word document that I printed and then saved, therefore I haven't visually changed the Word document, the metadata of that Word document indicating that I printed it would be different, and therefore that Word document would not hash to the version that I used before printing.
Can you give any examples of digital photographs that visually appear the same, not hashing?
I believe Mr. Neumeister included 3 of those in his demonstratives yesterday, 3 side-by-side photographs that looked visually the same but did not hash. It made sense that they wouldn't hash. Each of them had different file sizes. And a file size can change for a photograph depending on what you do with the photograph. So for example, maybe you want to take that photograph and email it to somebody, and on your phone, you choose to use a small, medium, or large or different size of the photograph when you email. When you send that email with that photograph, you've changed the hash value because you've changed the ones and zeros because you've changed the size of the photograph.
And what, if anything, do you recall from Mr. Neumeister's testimony regarding Photos 3?
Mr. Neumeister was concerned about a particular metadata field, EXIF metadata, which there's 2 types of metadata for files. There's the embedded metadata, which is what we're discussing here, the EXIF metadata, and external metadata. And Mr. Neumeister was concerned with embedded metadata within the file that indicated that the software version that the file last ran through was Photos.
What is Photos 3.0?
Photos is actually the software application that's built into the Apple Macintosh operating system for laptops. This is the application that launches by default when you're on an Apple computer and use Photos.
I want
What
you
are
guys to
the
know when the time is going
capabilities
up.
of Photos
We're
3.0?
7 minutes in. Remember, they got an
There's
hour.
multiple capabilities for it. You can, for
For the whole
example,
rebuttal
create an
phase. So
album.
we're 7 minutes
You
in.
put multiple photos within an album. You can organize or sort your photos by date and time taken or place. You can also use that to edit photos.
You mentioned metadata earlier. What is that?
Metadata is information about a file. For example, with a document, it could be when was the document created or last saved, or who saved it, who was the author of the document. For photographs, metadata includes information that you've seen on demonstratives before, including when was the image taken, what kind of phone took the image, what software was originally used for that image. Any type of information inside the photograph, the EXIF data that you've heard is metadata.
Did you form any opinions in response to Mr. Neumeister's testimony regarding Photos 3.0 appearing in a software EXIF metadata field?
Yes, I did.
And what are those?
My opinion is that for each of the photos that he identified, for all but one in his demonstrative, I actually found the equivalent original photo that did not have photos in the EXIF metadata. In other words, those are the photos that he was indicated he would have expected to see the iOS or the phone software version on those photos.
How do you know it is an original version of the photograph?
This is a little bit dependent on the Apple ecosystem. Amber uses Apple devices, and those devices, by definition of how Apple works, synchronize your information from device to device. So, for example, if you take a photo on your
killing their own
phone,
time.
you
I don't know why.
see that same photo
This
on your
makes no
tablet
sense.
or your iPad or your iCloud account or even your MacBook. And that's all because of user experience. Apple wants you to be able to see and visually have the same experience on all your devices. So the photo that was originally taken traverses or gets synchronized to other devices by design of Apple. And that synchronization process does not affect the metadata that we're talking about here, which is the embedded metadata.
When you say that a version of iOS software was listed in the software EXIF metadata field, what does that mean?
That means that the photo was not saved using the Photos application.
And what, if any, data sets did you use to come to that conclusion?
I used all of the data sets that I collected or were collected for Amber, including mobile devices, tablets, laptops, etc.
Michelle, can you please pull up Defendant's Exhibit 1671? Do you recognize this chart, Mr. Eckert?
I do.
What is it?
Thanks, Sam.
Without yet saying the contents, just generally, what is it?
This is a chart I created as part of my report.
Your Honor, permission to publish Defendant 671 is a demonstrative.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right. It'll be published as a demonstrative.
Mr. Eckert, can you please describe in more detail what the information in this chart? Michelle, if you could just stay at the top for a quick second. A little further up. Great.
Thank you. This chart represents for each of the items in Neumeister's report, which his demonstrative was based on, the page number of the item on his report and the items that I found on Ms. Hurd's devices that did not indicate the software metadata field showing photos. Rather, they indicated that they were the original software metadata field of iOS.
And do you see the second column titled Neumeister Report Date Captured?
Yes, I do.
What does information in that column mean?
This is the date time metadata of the particular
yeah.
photo on Neumeister's report. So for example, the first row, 23, the date time captured or the date captured is December 16th, 2015. The second row, 24, you see that the date time is May 21st, 2016. Third row, May 21st, 2016. Fourth row, May 21st, 2016.
Can you just scroll to the next page, please, Michelle? Please continue for the items on this page.
The top row of this page, the one that came from Neumeister's report, page 30, shows December 16th, 2016.
Right.
And then finally, 32 shows March 23rd, 2013.
He's losing us. What are we looking at? Why are we looking at this?
Can you scroll back to the top, please, Michelle? Do you
Why are we
see
looking
the, all the way to the top, I'm sorry, the right-hand column of this chart?
Yes, I do.
And where it says device ID and file name?
Yes.
Can you please explain what the information in that column means for each of the items identified from Mr. Neumeister's demonstrative?
So these are the evidence IDs. An evidence ID is the ID value I give to a particular piece of data that I collect, for example, a phone or a laptop, and the matching file name found on that evidence ID that indicated the original version of the same photograph that Neumeister identified that did not show
If the colors
photos
don't
in the
fit.
software metadata and rather showed the iOS version in the metadata.
And what do the
I
little
like it. I like it.
A's followed by numbers back up?
Michael,
What does that mean?
Those are evidence IDs. Anything with an
Colors
A
don't
number
fit too much.
is the evidence ID of an actual device collected. Anything that starts with a backup and follows by another number is an iTunes backup.
It
So
seems like
what,
Jay's
if any,
team is
what
letting them burn their
items in
time
this
by fishing
right-hand
for what
column,
seems to be
based
a
on
Hail
the
Mary of
coding you
technical
have here,
Yes,
are
William,
iTunes
I don't-
backups?
Only the ones that start with
let
the
them
word
waste their
backup.
time, right?
Even the ones
Does
that
this
start
even
with
matter?
an A
I don't think
number
this even
are
matters,
actually
William.
an
I think you're
iTunes
right.
or an
I don't
iOS
think it's even
backup in
nice.
iCloud. So your phone can actually be backed up to iCloud, and those are coming from an iOS backup in iCloud. Everything else is coming from an actual physical device.
Can you just take this down for a second, Michelle, and pull up 1675, please? Defendant 1675.
Yeah, to get over the time. Oh, the time is
And,
important. We're right now we're
Do you recognize
25
this chart,
minutes.
Mr. Eckert?
They had an hour yesterday.
Yes, I do.
They've already
Without
spent
yet getting into
25
the
minutes
contents,
on
can you please describe
the
generally
course
what it
and
is?
this. That's where we're at.
This is a chart that I prepared as a summary of my findings.
Permission to publish defendant 1675 is a demonstrative, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, 1675, we publish this
What are
demonstrative.
they doing? This
Can you please describe in more detail what the
I'm with
three
you.
columns
I don't
you
know
can
what
see
they're
in this
doing.
chart represent?
Sure, this starts to give some detail about the particular evidence ID. So for example, A001 was an iPhone X of Amber's that was collected. A002 was an iPad of Amber's collected. A11, 12, and 13, slightly down, are 3 different laptops that were collected for Amber.
And do you see the IDS evidence number column?
Yes, I do.
Do you see the source type column
Yes, I do.
and the source details column?
Yes, I do.
Can you please describe what those columns mean?
Generally, the IDS evidence number is the evidence number that we assign to a particular piece of evidence, and the type and details come from a description of that type of evidence based upon the collection set.
And Michelle, can you please do a side-by-side of 1675 and 1671?
Let's see the side by side.
Thank you. So,
I'm
Mr.
constantly
Acker, can you
wondering
please
how
describe
they
the
pick
relationship between
hill
these
to
two
die on.
demonstrative exhibits?
It's driving me nuts.
Certainly.
I know.
If you look at 1671, the one on the left, you can see in the fourth
I don't
column
know what they're doing.
the different evidence IDs where I identified the original versions of those same pictures that Mr. Neumeister had specifically identified and the sources of where they were identified. So if you look at the first
Okay.
one, for example, the picture Neumeister referenced on page 24,
Okay.
or I guess that's the second one, there are equivalent versions or original versions of those that do not show the software EXIF metadata field of photos. Rather, it shows the original iOS version on A001, which was Amber Heard's iPhone X, A002, which is Amber Heard's iPad Pro. Scrolling on down through there, you see it on A0011, which is Amber Heard's laptop, same with A0012 and 13. You can see this again with the next row that's visible at the very top. Neumeister identified a photograph on page 30,
Yep.
taken on
Closing
December
arguments
16,
is
2015.
it's separate
And he
time.
was
They
concerned
get 3
about
hours.
the
They only
EXIF
got
metadata of that, showing
time
the
check, everybody. 45 minutes left
software
for the
version of
defense.
photos. The original versions of those were found again on A001, that's her iPhone X, A002, her iPad. And it's not surprising to me that I found all these on all the devices because that's how the Apple ecosystem works. It replicates your pictures or synchronizes your pictures across your devices when you take them.
This is too far deep
Mr.
into the
Acker,
jury.
you can
Yes.
take us down, Michelle. Do you
All
recall
this is
Mr.
going over their
Neumeister's
heads, Steps
testimony
team.
regarding
When
what
your
he
enemy
claims
makes
of
is
EXIF
making mistakes,
metadata
don't
modification?
interrupt them. Yes, sir.
Yes, I do.
There are
This
no
is
objections,
a
right?
completely hypothetical scenario. Mr. Neumeister never specified any pictures with specificity that had exif
Big
metadata
Mig,
modification.
doing big
And it's a
things.
hypothetical in my opinion.
Thanks, Jesse.
Mr. Acker, did you form any overall conclusions in this case?
Yes, I did.
And
All
what
right,
were
here's
those?
the conclusions.
The images that were created in this case were included log files that allowed me to validate and verify the evidence collected. I validated and verified the log files of the evidence for which I found Mr. Neumeister's original photos that he had concerns about, specifically the ones that had
Yeah,
iOS and the
yeah.
software metadata.
I think you're right. I think the jury.
I validated that those came from devices that had log files that were validated by me. In other words, they came from original evidence files, and
No
in
self-respecting
most
equal
instances, they came from more than
the
one
iPhone
file.
X, the iPhone 10.
Mr. Acker, the opinions you have testified to today made to a reasonable degree of forensic certainty.
Yes, they are.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right.
All right.
Cross-examination, sir.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Here's
Good
the
morning.
cross. Here we go. Let's see.
You've worked with opposing counsel's law firm approximately 20 times before,
Give or take, yes.
for more than a dozen years?
Those 20 probably would have been spread out over more than a dozen years.
Okay. As you sit here today, you cannot testify that all of the photographs produced by Ms. Heard are authentic originals, correct?
Now, I can testify to the ones that Mr.
they
Neumeister
authentic
identified
original?
with specificity.
Right, but there were thousands of photographs provided that Mr. Neumeier didn't testify about, right?
I have no opinions on any photographs that the opposing expert has no opinions on.
All right. My question to you, though, is as you sit here today, can you testify that all the photographs produced by Ms. Heard are authentic
No.
originals?
As I sit here today, I cannot opine to photographs
There it
that
is.
have not been presented
Can't
to
say
me
they're all legit.
that are not authentic
That's
originals.
right. We can't say they're
You'll
all legit.
agree with me that in some instances, Ms. Heard produced multiple versions of the same photograph, right?
Yes,
Yeah, you just talked about it, right?
yes,
All right. And you'll agree with me that the XF data of some of the photos produced by Ms. Heard reflect the use of a photo editing application.
no.
No?
I'll agree that they show the use of the Photos application, which is a sorting and editing application.
It's trying-
Okay, so what you
it's trying to
were
be
quibbling
squirrely.
with is that it will both sort and edit.
That is correct.
Okay. Are you prepared to swear under oath that each and every photograph provided by Ms. Heard and entered into evidence in this court is an authentic original?
Based on the metadata that I have reviewed of the specific photographs I have reviewed, I can confirm that those are authentic original photographs. For the ones that Mr. Neumeister identified, I identified photos that were authentic originals.
No, I'm asking you a broader question than that. There were multiple photographs that Ms. Heard provided that were entered into evidence in this court. Are you testifying that those are each authentic originals?
I
No,
have
they're
no
not. We know they're
testimony or
not.
opinion on those because nobody's provided me opinion that they're not.
See, he doesn't
Okay.
remember. He just testified there was
Mr.
duplicates
Gibson, will you pull up
of the
defendant's
photos,
exhibit 712
right?
and
So
defendant's
they all can't be original.
713
He's got
next
them
to
in a
one
trap.
another? Your Honor, these have already been admitted, and
Trapping
I
him.
ask that we publish them to the jury.
They
Okay,
all can't
they're
be originals
admitted, we
because
can
he's already admitted to their duplicates. So the duplicates aren't originals. So
Can you
he's
see those
double talking
circles?
themselves.
Yes, I can.
Here they go. See?
You'll agree with me that those are different pictures?
No.
Visually, they look different to me, yes.
All right, we can take that down.
But so he should have asked. I would have asked the
you-
question. So
Pull up
both these
plaintiff's
pictures are
exhibit
authentic. That's what I'm saying. Original
1308.
authentics. You got to say no. No, they're not, right? They're not. That is the question I would have asked. I
This
think
has
that's the
not been
question
admitted,
that
Your Honor.
opens it up.
and I
Both these are
propose to use
original
it as a
pictures, authentic
demonstrative.
originals, right? No, one
Any
has to be and one
objection?
doesn't have to
Not as
be.
a demonstrative, Your Honor.
They're
All
duplicates.
right. Be identified and
I don't know why
published
he
the jury
didn't
as
close the door.
demonstrative.
There we go.
Any objection to entering it into evidence?
I would object it's cumulative, Your Honor. Actually, no, no objection, Your
No
Honor.
objection. All right, it's in evidence then.
1308 is in evidence. Mr. Gibson, can you blow up the time, date, and file name?
Okay.
Sir, you just agreed with me that those two photos are different photos, correct?
I agreed that they were visually different, yes.
Right. So they are two visually different photos that were created at the exact same hour, the exact same minute, the exact same second as each other, correct?
And that's what the daytime metadata shows, yes.
And the metadata shows something else too.
You're a
They have the
liar.
exact same file name, don't they, sir?
Yes, but that's not embedded metadata.
This is good. He got him.
How would you
Got
have
him.
this jury decide which one is real?
I think you would need to look at the software metadata field,
Got him.
which I haven't looked at. I don't recall if I looked at for this particular field.
You're a liar,
I think that's
doctor.
what even Mr. Neumeister said, that you need to look at the software metadata field.
But we have two
Now we got to trust Mr.
photographs
Now we got to trust
entered
Mr.
into
Newmeyer now.
evidence in
He
this
knows what he's
court
talking about all of a sudden.
that have the same identifying information, but in your view, look visually different, correct?
I don't agree that they have the same identifying information. I don't see a software metadata field here.
Uh-oh.
The identifying information includes the hour, minute, and second they were taken, this picture were taken.
He cutting him, boy.
I see that.
No
That's
further
the
questions.
metadata.
All right. And just for the record, since we already have 712 and 713 in evidence as redacted, now this will be 712 and 713A. So 712A and
That is how you
712-13A
shut
are now in
down a
evidence, just to keep the
witness.
record clean.
Here's
Okay?
the metadata that you said. These are two different pictures.
All right.
They're exactly the
Redirect.
same.
Mr. Acker, you just mentioned embedded metadata. What is that?
Embedded metadata is metadata inside a file. I talked earlier about the date printed of a Word
Gotta try to
document.
clean
That's
it up.
embedded
Okay.
into the file, and that traverses with the file wherever it goes.
They're authentic, but they're different.
And based on all
They
of the
both
photo
can be authentic.
metadata you have reviewed, do you have any reason to question the forensic authenticity of any photos Mr. Neumeister testified to for which you are responding to?
Yeah, John's right. That's how you turn a witness.
Can you repeat that question, please?
Yes, based on all of the photo metadata you have reviewed, based on the photos Mr. Neumeister testified to, do you have any reason to question the forensic authenticity of those photos?
I do not.
Following your cross-examination, Mr. Acker, have any of your opinions in this matter changed?
You're right.
They have not.
You're right, Dr. Cataclysm.
And is it still your testimony that the opinions you testified to do today are made with a reasonable degree of forensic certainty?
Yes.
No further questions, Your
All
Honor.
right, thank you. Sir, you can have a seat in the courtroom, or you're free to go.
My point, yeah.
All right.
He's
Did you
running
wanna
out
approach
there.
just for a moment?
He ran out of here. He was, I'm out of here. No more questions, please. Damn it. I just got my ass chewed up on cross-examination. No more of that. No more of that. What a waste of time. So today I got them at 19 minutes. So if you put the 19 minutes, so I got them at 19 on this witness. So they're down to about 40 minutes to put on their rebuttal case. So that's what they're down to. Again, my calculations are rough. So let me knock down some of these super chats. That was they put on that witness and he just got his ass chewed up. That didn't make any sense. William says, my professional background in data analytics. This is horrible way to present and relate information to an audience. Of course, yeah, it was boring. It was, and it didn't, I couldn't follow it. Everyone on the jury, if they aren't data professionals, are probably lost. Yeah, I'm lost, and I was watching it. Thanks. Thanks for the $10 super chat. Yeah, I was lost too. This is negative meat. It is beyond meat of testimony. They put this guy up, John says it's a waste of time. I think it's a waste of time too. I think he's conceded my point. I agree with you, Classic. And this is how you turn a witness. This is how you turn a bad witness into a very good witness. He's saying another witness got it right. He's saying look at what the other witness said. He said something similar to what I said. That was funny. He was like, another witness, he agrees with me. Your witness agrees with me too. Oh, that was funny. No self-respecting geek calls the iPhone. That's true. I read that one. That's true. I wouldn't call it, but maybe it's because the iPhone 10. Maybe he's just trying to be this. Thank you. Thanks for the $5. I'm just going through the old super chat that I wanted to make sure I understood.
All right, your next witness.
Yeah,
Your Honor, we would like to call
Part
Dr.
2.
Don Hughes to the
All
stand
right,
again.
Dr. Hughes.
All this going over my head. Depp's team. When your enemy is making, yeah. So they got Dr. Hughes coming to get back at Dr. Curry. But how long is this going to take? So you don't got to they don't got a qualifier again. But
Thank you, Doctor. Just a reminder that you're still under oath, okay,
Yes,
ma'am?
Your Honor. Thank
starting
you.
the clock again. This is what Dr. Hughes.
And could you please just remind the jury who you are again?
Sure, I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist. I am
You got
board
ripped out.
certified in forensic psychology. I am the president-elect of the trauma division of the American Psychological Association. And I evaluated Amber Heard over 6 visits for approximately 29 hours.
And why are you here today?
To offer rebuttal testimony to Shannon Curry's testimony of yesterday.
Okay. Now, Dr. Curry said you used improper methods. Would you agree with that?
No, I would not.
Why? Please explain.
As I testified to you all several weeks ago, I used a standard forensic procedure that is well established in our field. It is a multi-method, multi-hypothesis-driven procedure where you're looking at a variety of different details and tests and external data to arrive at an opinion, and you're looking at the consistency across that data. There are 3 sort of sets of tests that we use as forensic psychologists, and I think that's where it seems that Dr. Curry
This is
seems
a mistake.
confused.
You don't
We
want to
have
start getting all
forensic
this.
assessment
This
instruments.
is a mistake.
Those are
You're
instruments
running
that
out of
are
time. Why are we
very
going through these
neatly
long
tied to a
explanations?
legal
It's got to be
criteria.
tighter than this.
Those
It's
are most
ridiculous.
notably done in a criminal court for competency. If someone has competency to stand trial, we have very clear
Does she
measures
not know? I
that
don't
can
think she
track
knows.
that legal criteria. The next level are forensically relevant instruments. And those instruments are not linked to a specific legal criteria, but they do have information that's germane to that finding. And that can be an example of a risk assessment measure and a malingering measure. So the malingering measure
was a
that I
clown.
utilized was the MFAST, and that was the only malingering measure in this case. The third category are clinical assessment instruments.
Oh,
And
you're
those
so
are
right. Take
instruments
the
that
10
are
10
validated
the
and
$10,
well
but yeah,
researched
you're right.
and used in the
110%.
clinical realm
was
as
a
we
clown.
understand people's symptomatology and diagnostic and functional capacities. Those are things like the MMPI, the PAI, the CAPS,
They are
the
restricted to a
TSI,
counterclaim. If
because
not,
they are clinically relevant and they still give us very valuable
they are restricted to
information
counterclaim.
to
That's what they're doing
individuals
here.
who are involved in a court case.
Together.
And the reason that we do that and we use these
It's for the
clinical
counterclaim.
measures is because the
Right.
majority of the people that we see are in a clinical realm. They're not in a courtroom. So they're well validated and well researched methods. What we also do is use a very different types of tests within that category. We use some checklists,
Maybe
some
she will
fatal
be happy.
checklists. We use some tests that are the broadband personality inventories. We use structured clinical interviews. And then we look for the consistency across those data points. And when we use
Yesterday,
different types of
we were all
tests,
about to see
it
witness
gives
get
us
murdered on
information
YouTube.
about the individual, how they go
it's
about
funny.
these tests in these different modalities.
Now, Dr. Curry seemed to suggest that Amber Heard
This was
tested
horrible
the most
before. Why call her
extreme
again?
category in all of these different tests. Is
She
that
will just get
accurate?
murdered on cross.
That is-
Objection compound.
Cross.
Overruled.
That is not
maybe she will.
accurate. They were
We'll
not
see.
on the checklist. I mean, people sometimes do. They go, all the time, this happens to me all the time, frequently. And that is not how she endorsed these tests. She endorsed them in a very
So she did
moderate
give her the
way,
checklist.
in a very nuanced way, describing her symptoms that I determined was
So she
accurate and
admits,
reliable.
I gave her a checklist.
And Dr.
and she
Curry
checked
also
off the list.
suggested that
Yeah, I got
Amber Heard
everything.
was tested very, very high, 98 percentile, I think, on malingering and feigning. Could you
98
speak to that,
percentile.
please?
Sure. So, I mean, she said a lot of things. So let's go through those tests. The first was the PAI.
Sure,
And
take
that's
all
that
the
other
time you need,
broadband
doctor.
psychological
Objection,
measure.
non-responsive.
I think it's very responsive.
Sustained.
Okay. Could you tell the jury about the PAI test that Dr. Curry
Yes,
addressed?
so, yes, thank you. So that's the broadband measure that has validity scales built into it that gives us indications about how the individual goes about the test. I told you last time that there was no evidence of malingering or exaggeration or
evidence.
feigning on that test. What Dr. Curry was talking about was this
Curry said-
tendency to put your best foot forward to
Curry said,
minimize
"It's- you
faults on
taught
this
her how
PAI.
to cheat the test."
That
That's true.
scale was
Said she taught
right
her
at
how
the
to cheat
cusp.
test. You're right.
And then there are two other measures that we look at that to say, is this enough for an elevation for me to consider that as a serious response distortion, of which Dr. Curry was saying, and it was not. What was
That's true.
relevant on this
That's
test
true.
was there were
Good
elevations
question.
on anxiety, on affective anxiety, meaning anxiety, tension, worry,
If
on
male patients
traumatic
can be
stress,
victims of IPV. I
on
like it.
hyperactivity, and on affective instability. Those were the four scales that were elevated on this test. The borderline scale was not elevated on this test. And this test,
Objection, Your Honor.
Specific-
May we approach?
Yes.
Oh, here we go. Maybe he's going to try to limit the scope because she's now talking about everything, right? It's supposed to be rebuttal. Well, what the hell is she talking about? She's talking about things that aren't rebuttal. She's talking about crazy stuff. So she's supposed to be rebutting Curry. She's supposed to be rebutting. She's supposed to be rebutting Curry. Seriously, it's so easy to change all the metadata, and I think that's exit on a file. I could do it in like 5 minutes. That's why you need original hardware. Yeah, I think the expert that I don't know why they put that expert on with the pictures. I just don't know why. He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. And Curry, I understand why you put this one up. I would put this one up, but not the other one. I'm actually going to stop the timer real quick because they're doing this. But right now, just for the people who want to know the time, so I got on their witnesses, they've already spent 25 minutes, stopping it for right now for these little conferences. And for the cross-examination of the first witness, they spent 10. So right now, my clock that I'm tracking, they got 35,
Dr. Curry,
30,
let's move
35
to
minutes
the
left.
TSI-2. Dr. Curry testified about your findings on that. Did you agree with her testimony yesterday?
no,
Please
again,
describe why. Explain why.
We are
what Dr.
watching her
Curry
career
went back
plummet
to,
live.
which is this 98th percentile, which I told you in the manual, all you have to do is read the manual. It says specifically that we do not use the percentile ranks for this test. That indicates to me that, Dr. Curry does not know the psychometric properties of this test, and that she then
doesn't
is
know it.
therefore not qualified to interpret it. That score, the one that's elevated, which she's talking about, that
The 90th
percentile rank,
percentile.
has a raw score. Amber's raw score is a 10. The cutoff score is a 15. She's nowhere near that level of exaggerated symptoms where I can't further look at that test. Secondly, there are 3 scales out of maybe there's about 20, a little more on the TSI that were elevated. Intrusive experiences, that's when thoughts and memories of the trauma come into your mind when you don't want them. Defensive avoidance, sort of behavioral ways that we try to push out those memories and not think about them. And then relational avoidance, a way of having difficulty in interpersonal relationships. Those are all trauma-based symptoms, and those were elevated on this test.
Thank you. Dr. Hughes, the MFAS, Dr. Curry addressed that as well and had criticisms for your interpretations. Do you agree with that?
No.
Please explain to the
So the MFAST, as I told you last time, is a measure of malingering. It's the only measure of malingering that was done in this case. Dr. Curry did not independently administer measure malingering, and there are other ones that she could have done to augment her evaluation. And she kept saying something that MFAST is not for malingered PTSD. That's wrong on a couple of levels. People who are going to malinger and feign don't only feign one diagnosis. they sometimes talk about all different symptoms that they have, and they exaggerate and they make themselves seem much worse than they are. So when you're doing an evaluation, you're giving them a lingering measure to get a sense of how this person is responding to this evaluation. Now, what you do is you take those 3 tests that I talked to you about, the PAI, the TSI, and the MFAST, all with valid validity scales, you have greater confidence in your results. And that is in the literature, and that's literature that Dr. Curry cited in her report. That bolsters the methodology that I used. That in the study that had the PAI, the MFAST, and the TSI in the title of detecting feigned from bona fide PTSD.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Curry also talked about the danger assessment scale and suggested that you had inappropriately interpreted that. Do you agree?
That's also incorrect.
Please describe for the jury.
Which I told you last time, the danger assessment scale has statistically validated risk factors for serious or lethal domestic violence. Those risk factors exist whether we go forward, we're sitting with someone in an acute setting and assessing them right now, or if we look backward and we look retrospectively about what factors may have been present in a case that indicated severity. That instrument is used in what we call, there's called domestic fatality review boards. Those are boards after somebody has been killed, a homicide has occurred in a domestic situation. They look at these risk factors to see what was there and what could be done.
Right. Dr. Curry also criticized your administering of the CAPS 5. Do you agree with her criticisms?
I do not.
Will you please explain to the jury?
So the CAPS 5, as you all have heard multiple times, is a structured clinical interview in determining PTSD according to DSM-5 criteria. On this measure, Amber Heard scored in a moderate range. She did not over-exaggerate on this test. She could have said no, mild, moderate, severe, and extreme. All of hers were either 2s or 1s or 0s, none above that. So she's scoring in the moderate range, which still has functional impairments. I mean, we don't want someone to be having moderate PTSD, but that's not an exaggerated profile or exaggerated response style of someone who's answering an instrument.
Right. And the last of these Dr. Curry referred to was the PCL-5. Do you agree with her criticisms of your administration and interpretation of that?
No, so the PCL-5 is a checklist of symptoms of PTSD. It is, as she said, it is a face valid instrument. It seems it's very clear about how you can endorse this. But what the person has to do is say, how disturbed am I by these symptoms? And when you have face valid measures with these other measures that have the built-in sort of validity scales, you're sort of controlling for that response bias error. You're controlling for that individual to sort of over-exaggerate. But then what you do with that test, because this is, we're not just administering them like robots, is you go and you do a clinical assessment. And that's what I did. I took what she wrote, what she endorsed on that test in January of 2021, and I did a clinical assessment of those symptoms to see if they meet criteria for PTSD. That is something we do clinically, and I do in my office all the time. And yes, she did meet PTSD from that in January 2021.
Thank you.
She's answered questions.
Dr. Curry said you misinterpreted her test results. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree that I agree that I interpreted them, that she misinterpreted them.
Okay, and please explain.
Yes, so I said that before. My stance on the MMPI and how she interpreted it
no problem.
is,
I got it.
I believe, wrong, and I think
Objection, Your Honor.
All right.
That's the issue we just addressed.
All right.
Outside the scope. Outside the
I
scope
don't-
of rebuttal. So they had so the problem is that they want so I remember earlier. Now this is where it comes out now. Remember earlier when I said if I was Amber Heard's attorney, I would use rebuttal to kind of bolster my case against Johnny, because rebuttal, we're not winning the other case, right? We the other case. My opinion earlier was that we would actually attack the
Dr.
case
Hughes,
in chief.
Dr. Curry also
rebuttal.
testified
And
that a
that's
victim
what
of
she was at. That was the
PTSD
problem
has
here.
to effectively be prone and unable to function at all. Would you agree with that?
Objection misstates the evidence.
Yeah, so
She said
this is a
they
desperate
couldn't
last
hike,
guy.
they couldn't move, they couldn't function in any way, shape, or
Overruled
form.
objection.
Thank you.
No, that is not correct. That is often actually a myth and misconception about individuals who were struggling with PTSD or trauma-based disorders. And I'm often called to answer that and speak to that. People who are struggling with trauma and PTSD are very strong, courageous, resilient people, even though that they're struggling. They get up, they have to go to work and drop their kid off at school and go to the market, even though they're struggling with these symptoms. So I often talk about it as this sort of walking around with a 50-pound bag of flour on their backs, just sort of trying to get through the day, where sometimes that button's going to press play and the trauma is going to start activating in their head, and then they're going to be having to think about it and have startle and have physiological reactions until they can find a way to hit that pause and shut it off again. So they still have, impairments in other ways, but they go about their lives. They're not, totally debilitated. If you have someone in that high range, the highest score is an 80 on the CAPS, Ms. Hurd had a 28. If you have someone in the higher range, we have seen people who are, severely disabled because of it, but that's not the norm of people who have this moderate PTSD.
And did you find functional impairment with Amber?
Yes, I did.
Now, Dr. Curry also said that it is not within the scope of a psychologist to evaluate domestic violence. Do you agree with that?
Of course, I don't agree with that. This is what I do for a living, day in, day out, for 25 years. We are specifically trained to understand the profound impact that trauma has on people's lives. That's what we do in the trauma division of the American Psychological Association. We disseminate that knowledge. And domestic violence is one of those profound traumas. Domestic violence is part of state licensing boards that you can't get licensed in some states unless you take training on domestic violence. You can't renew your license unless you get training on domestic violence. So people who have, specialized training in this area, it is, beholden upon them to accurately assess for intimate partner violence and sexual violence. And it's more important to assess for the sort of scientific understanding of what domestic violence is. So you have to assess for the physical violence, the psychological violence, the surveillance, the economic, the emotional abuse, and the sexual violence. That is not gratuitous. That is understanding.
Narrative.
All right. Next question.
Yep, she's throwing up a narrative.
Now, Dr. Curry suggested that you made a determination just based on personal opinion and just on checklists and a couple of tests that you misinterpreted. Would you agree with that?
I vehemently disagree with that. As I stated to you, over 29 hours and 12 psychological tests and reviewing a slew of documents in this case, most importantly, therapy records and interviews, collateral interviews with therapists, using all that data. That is what a solid forensic methodological exam looks like. And then I made my conclusions based on my clinical education, knowledge, and training to come up with a professional expert opinion.
And just to remind, to make sure we're reminded here, you were qualified in this court, in this case, as an expert in forensic psychology, and specifically in domestic violence. And in,
time is running out.
No, I just lost it. And in violence, correct? Intimate and in trauma, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, misstates the record.
If you want to ask the question again.
Yeah, I probably should do that. You were qualified. I got to find my note. Damn. You were qualified as an expert in forensic psychology with a specialty in domestic violence and in trauma, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that was in this case?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, do you still hold the same opinions you did that you gave the jury earlier?
Yes, I do.
And do you still hold them within a reasonable degree of psychological probability and certainty?
Last question.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor, but can we approach quickly?
Sure.
All right, so just from my clock that I'm keeping, so for these examinations, I had them at 70 minutes left. For the cross earlier, they spent 10. For these direct examinations, I got them down 35 minutes. So there's 20, and the redirect. So they have 25 minutes left, and we're at 10:30. So 25 minutes left. That's where they're at. That's where I got them at. Oof. So they still have a rebuttal case. So yeah, let's see what happens here. Now I'm assuming they want to go into some line of questions where they believe maybe she opened the door to something. That's why they always said that's why he wanted to go and speak first. He was like, yeah, she opened the door to a couple of things I want to be able to touch on. Yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, they're back. This is about the last expert. This is the so-called expert, the clown, the picture guy. The whole metadata argument is a waste of time, and a 5-minute research, fake edit results in the thousands of ways to edit and fake. Yes, they exit. If proves it cannot.
Good morning, Dr. Hughes.
Good morning, Mr. Dennison.
The last time you were here, I believed that you testified that you had diagnosed Ms. Heard with PTSD before you gave the gold standard CAPS-5 test.
That's correct.
Right.
So before she gave the test, she diagnosed
diagnosis is actually reflected in the first of the disclosures you put forward in this case.
I believe the first disclosure was February 2021. And at that point, I had done
Jim, you're right.
11 psychological tests. That's correct.
Right. And your disclosure reads, Ms. Heard's responses on the PCL-5 support a DSM-5 diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder with an etiology of intimate partner violence she experienced by a former partner. Remember writing that?
That's correct.
Okay. You just testified that you need to read the manual, right?
Yes.
Oh, is he going to hit her with the manual?
Can we put up 1311 as a demonstrative?
What the hell happened to Dennison? He all of a sudden became like the god of cross-examination. Yes, he said read the manual. Don't tell me you're going to impeach her with the manual. Don't tell me you're going to impeach her with the manual. Are we going to impeach her with the manual? If he does this, people, this is going to be crazy. Let me see.
Any objection to
I don't know
1311?
what it is, Your Honor.
All right, if you want to
May we
lay
approach?
approach.
Tom,
So I'm expecting. So let's see if I can predict what's going to happen. I don't know. I don't know what he's going to say, but I'm predicting that the manual is going to say she was supposed to give the test first before diagnosing or something like that. And that's why when she said, I don't believe Curry read the manual, he said, oh, read the manual, right? Let's go to the manual. So I think this is going to be, you're talking about she needs to read the manual. You need to read the manual. That's where I think this is going. But I don't know. So let's see if my prediction is right. They're coming back. Oh my God. She's going to be, if he turned to, let's see it, John. Let's see it. Here we go. Here we go.
Thank
Let me
you.
shut up. Giving her the manual. Okay. Where are we going with this? It better be good, Dennison. You got me talking it up. That's what I would do.
Don't see this in my document.
They're getting the right one up.
yeah, we got it.
Elena's like, I don't see
Let's
it.
use 1312.
1312. Okay,
Plaintiff's 1312.
and that, any objection to that demonstrative?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, 1312 can be
So it's
published.
not going
in
to the
jury.
jury. It's just going
Dr. Hughes, do you recognize what the National Center for PTSD is?
What it is?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
And they publish the PTSD checklist for DSM-5,
That's correct.
that what we've been calling the PCL-5.
Correct.
All right.
Come on, Dennison. Let's see what
And
you're doing.
are you familiar with the document that's on your screen?
Yes.
She's got to be, right? She's the
What is it?
expert of experts.
It's the instruction manual to how to administer the PCL-5.
Okay.
Your experiences.
I'd like to move for the admission of 1312.
Any objection to 1312 coming in?
I don't know.
evidence?
George
All right,
is just too-
1312 and evidence.
George's too wild. George
Can
is
we go to the
just too wild.
second page?
You just don't know. All right, here we go. The impeachment. But this is a good question.
Can we blow up the second paragraph on the right?
Are you going to have her read it? That'd be gangster. Have her read it.
The PCL-5 should not be used as a standalone diagnostic tool. When considering a diagnosis, the clinician will still need to use clinical interviewing skills and a recommended structured interview, e.g. the CAPS-5, to determine a diagnosis, correct? That's what the manual says.
Right, and this manual
Okay.
also.
That's what the
says
manual
that
says.
This is a screening instrument, so
That's
when
what
you
the
do the
manual
clinical interview,
says.
you absolutely can determine
She's
diagnosis
So the
after
answer is
somebody
yes. The manual says
still
the
needs to
Cut her
use
off.
clinical
Cut her off.
interviewing
Cut
skills,
her off.
which I used.
The manual
Let me
says
finish
yes.
my question. The PCL5 should not be used as a standalone diagnostic tool, and they recommend using the CAPS-5 to determine a diagnosis, correct?
Doctor.
It does say that, yes.
Yeah, and you made your diagnosis before you did the CAPS.
I made my
Yes.
diagnosis doing clinical interviewing and
Yes.
11 other
Yes.
psychological tests that
Yes.
supported diagnosis
Yes.
of PTSD and symptomatology
Doc.
consistent with PTSD.
Doc.
Okay.
Doc. You fighting, Doc.
You said that we should read the manual. Would you also agree with me that we need to read the directions on these tests?
Are we going to the
Sure.
directions?
Okay.
Dennison's read the manual.
Tom, can you pull up 1309 as a demonstrative?
Ah, he's killing her with the manual. This is brutal. This is brutal. You said you got to follow the manual. All right, you didn't follow it this time. Let's go to the directions.
Thank you.
Dennison's like, yo, let's go. You didn't follow this one. Let's go to the directions. My God.
Any objection of 1309 as a demonstrative?
May we approach?
Okay.
Elena's like, we got to stop this massacre. It's a massacre. Dennison is doing pretty good today. Dennison, you stepped up your game. I gotta say, Dennison's he came prepared this morning. It's like, oh, I get Dr. Curry again. You see, that's why you got to be careful what you said. That's what you said. She should have read the manual. Here's the manual. Seems like you didn't read it either. Tough. And she's already not likable.
The jury is demonstrative.
This is devastating. Yeah, John, you're right. This is devastating.
Doctor, do you recognize the demonstrative
No.
that's in front of you?
It wasn't.
Yes, but I didn't put the red lines on that.
Okay.
No, I didn't.
Yes, I know.
Okay. So this, what do you recognize this as?
I recognize that we previously discussed this, and I told you that I oriented Ms. Hurd to a different time frame because she was already out of the relationship.
You
Okay,
ask the question.
maybe we should back it up a little.
Yes,
This
ask
is
the
the
question.
CTS-2 that you administered as part of this battery of tests that you indicate you did in relationship to your diagnosis.
Right, this is the conflict tactic scale too.
See, he's got to
And
control it a
you'll
little
agree with me that this test specifically asks in front of every single question, how often did this happen in the past year?
I am paying back those lines.
Correct, and I
Right.
oriented
And
the
you know-
individual to not limit
it's
herself to the
correct.
last year to get an
No,
accurate
you
assessment
gotta control
of
it.
the
I guess
violence
it-
and
I
abuse that she
am
experienced
asking
in
the
the
question.
relationship.
Objection, Your Honor, move to strike.
All right. I'll move to strike the last part of the answer. Strike the last part of the answer. Thank you. Next question.
Yeah, and you know that at the
Shut up,
time
doctor.
that you gave this test to Ms. Hurd, she had been away from Mr. Depp for far longer than a year, correct?
Which is why I
Correct.
oriented her to a
Correct.
different
Yes or no,
time
ma'am?
frame in answering the
Correct.
Doctor,
question.
yes or
Correct.
no?
So of course,
There it
Okay,
is.
you knew she was gone for more than a year.
of
He's
course.
controlling it
All
now.
Let's look at another one of these.
Not following directions, doctor. Got an expert, are you? The directions on the form she filled out.
You
tough
you
nut,
talked
huh?
about the danger assessment test.
That's correct.
He went through the test. This witness is a disaster now. This witness went on about talking about following directions and now turned into a damn disaster on the stand.
What number is this?
Unforced error.
13,
Danger of
plaintiff's
bringing people
13,
back.
10.
Yeah. Now Dennison has everything he
Thank
needs to burn these folks.
Any
Yeah.
objection to 1310?
And you know he's
As
probably been
demonstrative?
watching all the thing.
Okay.
Oh, Dennison could have did a better
publish
job.
the jury.
She won. So you know he was like, please God, let me get a second crack. And you know
Dr.
she's all
Hughes,
upset.
this is a blank form, but this is the danger assessment test that you also gave to Ms. Hurd, correct?
I didn't give it to her. I filled it out based on the data that was provided to me.
Oh, so you asked her the questions and then you filled it in.
It was somewhat collaborative.
Okay. Can we blow up the second full paragraph?
Take a full paragraph. What's it say?
It says, using the calendar, please mark the approximate dates during the past year when you were abused by your partner or ex-partner. You didn't use any calendar, did you?
I did
Yes
not
or
use
no?
a calendar because
All right,
she
that's
was
it. That's
already
my
out of the
question. That's my
relationship. As I
question.
said,
That's
these
my
are
question.
static risk factors, so they don't change.
That's my
So I
question. Control the
oriented to the
witness.
time of the
Control the witness.
relationship.
Control
Ma'am,
the
it's fair to
witness.
say that this examination that you gave specifically indicates that that you were supposed to look over the past year. And
That's
not the
one,
language?
no, that's one administration. People use this instrument for if you're in an acute situation in a relationship, trying to get a better assessment of the current behaviors. We can use it retrospectively, like I just stated, and in homicides and looking back about what are the serious risk factors that were in this relationship.
I didn't ask you about anything other than, don't the instructions limit this test to the previous year?
Yes or no?
You can give this
Yes.
test not only on the
Nope,
previous year,
asking you about the instructions.
but I'm
Yes
telling
or
you
no?
how the
I'm
test is
asking, I don't
administered
care.
in
I don't
clinical
care. I'm
practice
asking
and
about the
forensic
instructions.
practice.
And opposing counsel can come up and ask questions about it. I'm asking you about the instructions. And the instructions say,
Controller.
look over the past year.
Correct?
And,
Yeah, on this,
Yes.
yes, that it says that.
and you had actual knowledge when you gave the test that Mr. Depp was gone way more than a year before this test.
Yes.
That is correct.
Right.
You see that? Yes, that is
look at
correct.
more
Shut her up.
instructions.
More instructions. Oh
Can we
my
look at
God.
1247, which is
Dennison
already in
has
evidence.
got the gut out. He's like, we're gonna go through them all, baby, to show you what you that you want to talk about instructions. We're gonna go over some instructions. He is on fire. Go, Dennison.
Dr. Hughes,
Good
you recognize
job.
this one too, right?
Yes,
All right, this is
Want to see a dead body?
what everybody calls the
Oh,
CAPS
he's-
5.
correct.
He's on the way of
Can we go
killing
to the
it
first page?
because he's killing it. More instructions. We
Let's
read
blow
more
up the
instructions about the DSM-5 than ever. Here we go. Let me be quiet so we can hear it.
Standard administration and scoring of the CAPS 5 are essential for producing reliable and valid scores and diagnostic decisions. Correct?
Correct.
And you know you have to do this in a standardized way because it is the first instruction, correct?
Correct.
Can we go to the next page? One more. Oh, wait, that's good. This is a page on scoring, and we talked about this last time.
Yes.
You score these tests by frequency and intensity.
Correct.
And you'll remember that in every single instance that you were asked to fill in the blank about frequency, you failed to do so, correct?
That's not correct.
Oh, you filled in any blank on this form with respect to frequency?
I filled in the frequency on the side of the caps where I am actually scoring the caps.
No, I asked
Where
you
it's
whether
relevant.
you filled in a single blank on this form with respect to frequency. Is the answer to that yes or no?
I don't know what you mean, a single blank.
All right, let's
Pull up the blank.
Let's keep going. All right, we'll stay at this page for a second. This is the very first box you're asked to fill in as to, I think, a fairly
walking into the
fundamental
gallows,
question, right?
yeah.
What happened?
We talked about this before, Mr. Dennison.
Yep.
I had 88 pages of notes of what happened.
Now it's
It would have been
excuses now.
redundant to put it there.
Excuses,
You know that you are obligated to produce this test in a way that other people can meaningfully review them. Yes?
The people in this case
all
who
I'm
are
asking.
meaningfully
That's not what I'm
reviewing them
asking.
have
That's
my
what I'm not
88
asking.
pages of
I'm not
notes.
asking you that.
But you chose to put absolutely nothing in the box, the standardized box that said what happened.
You don't have to put it in the box if you have it somewhere else. It's not
Because
a,
this
if
is
it's
not
not
a standardized test.
well, if it's not a research instrument that is used for research, if you're using it for a clinical diagnostic purpose, no, you don't. If you have that data elsewhere.
Okay, let's go another page or so.
Thanks for the 9. Thanks, Ed.
All right. Let's go another one.
Then it's busted out the manual. This figuratively.
Let's look at item 4B4.
Follow the directions. Thanks for the $10, Scholar. Yeah.
And I asked you, and you filled in the blank about frequency. And there's a blank in many of these items that asks number of times. You didn't fill a single one of them in, did you?
Right, because I filled them on the right side of the instrument where I am scoring
She
it.
is not. filled
And
it
that
in.
is the way that you believe that you followed the instructions of a standardized test.
Yes, correct.
No further questions.
All right, redirect.
You got to come clean her up. You got to come clean her up. But do you have the time? You got to clean her up. She's not following directions.
Risk factor, what did you mean by that?
Sloppy.
Static risk factors are risk factors that
Start
don't
that clock
change.
again.
It's maybe if you smoke cigarettes, you may have a risk of lung cancer, right? The factor that doesn't change. You can look forward if someone's smoking, you can look past if someone's smoking. So these
Dennis, I got you
lethality risk
today, girl.
factors are present whether you're evaluating them in the last year or 5 years ago.
And when you're trying to assess for trauma related to the interpersonal violence that we discussed, why is it important to get a time frame in which the relationship was in existence?
Well, you want to see the amount of trauma that the person experienced. The longer that they're in a relationship, you have more successive trauma. And one of the things that we know from the research is more trauma is not better. So the more successive traumas that you have, the greater likelihood that somebody's going to have psychological consequences and symptomatology as a result.
And therefore you need to get it within the relationship.
Objection leading.
And so how does that relate to needing to get the time frame in the relationship?
Well, you need to understand when you're trying to evaluate the impact of something, you want to have to understand what happened to the person.
this
And
is a-
that's
this is a
sort of the
time kill
core
right
and
now.
the basis of trauma-informed care and of trauma diagnoses. You have to understand, the traumatic event and how it transpired and how
shredded
it
with
played
the,
out for that
yikes.
individual so that
Yeah,
you can
she got
better
shredded
assess
on-
for the symptomatology that's
read the
falling from it.
instructions. And she's not reading the
You
instructions.
said you had
right?
88 pages of notes. What were in your 88? And without going into the specifics, can you just describe what was included in the 88 pages of notes?
In the 88 pages were many of the documented incidents of intimate partner
Objection, Your
violence.
Honor.
She's just describing it. That came up. He said you didn't fill those in the boxes. She said it was in my 88 pages. I'm just saying what was in your 88 pages. I'm not asking her to give each of the specific events. She can describe the summary of it.
Can we come up?
Okay.
Yeah, but describing what the hearsay says is still hearsay. So we'll see, because that's the objection for hearsay. But she was challenged. It's interesting. So Dr. Hughes, you could tell she's nervous up there. She's like, look at her face. Look at her face. She's like, oh my God. Damn, I should have read the manual. I'm supposed to be a forensic analyst with the book.
What is the difference between clinical scoring and clinical evaluation and research evaluation with respect to the CAPS-5 and the other tests?
It's in compound.
Sustained.
It was a compound.
Your Honor, when it's compounded, it's because it might be confusing to the jury.
Sustained. Next question.
Okay. Can you explain to the jury what the difference is between clinical scoring and evaluation on a test and research?
Objection, Your Honor, compound.
Overruled. Good.
Sure. So the PCL and the CAPS-5 are frequently used in research. And when they're used in research, that means the document stands alone. They don't have 88 pages of notes to help understand the background of the trauma and what the person has experienced. And why those boxes may be relevant in research is because back in the day when I was a research assistant, I had to input that into the computer. And then they would maybe look at some of that data for the research study. So that becomes very important in research.
All right. Thank you. I have no further questions.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hughes. You can have a
Thank
seat in
you.
the courtroom or you're free to go. Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take our afternoon recess. Our morning recess. Let's take our 15-minute recess. Do not discuss the case with anybody and don't do any outside research, okay?
The doctor got chewed up a little bit right there. So with that being done, and their clock stopped, I'm giving them like another minute. Let me do my calculations on time. I'm coming up with, they got about 20
All right, why
minutes
don't we
left.
just come back at 11:05 then? All right.
I got the defense got 20 minutes left. So if my calculations are right, based on, and the way I've got it is that they're direct, redirect, and cross-examination this morning. They came in, I'm saying, what, 70 minutes? And they've spent about 48 minutes this morning. So they're down to about 22 minutes. So 22 minutes what they got. Now, somebody's asked what clock. Well, the clock is essentially the defense has a set amount of hours to present their case, and the plaintiff has a set amount of hours to present their case. And if they do not within that time frame, they got to sit down and just take it. So that's essentially what's going on here. Both sides have a set amount of time for this. So what did you guys think? What did you guys think? This was kind of crazy this morning. This is kind of crazy. So I understand why you put Dr. Curry. I understand why you put this doctor up, right? I do understand why you put this doctor up, but I think we have a problem now, right? Because even if you put this doctor up, the problem is that the cross-examination of this doctor went horribly wrong, right? Her whole thing was Dr. Curry's a newbie and Dr. Curry doesn't really know what she's talking about. She's not following directions, but then you throw it up there and she's not following directions and he's reading them. Here's the directions. She's trying to struggle with, well, the directions are, but if they are not sacrosanct to you, then they shouldn't be that meaningful to Dr. Curry. So it was a very, very, very well done cross-examination. I think Dennison was really, really well prepared today. Barry off $5 says, do some lawyers knowingly ask leading questions to let their witness know the expected answer to the cleanup question? Sometimes you can ask it leading, they'll object, and then you'll go in and then you'll ask it properly because you want them to know where you're going. Sometimes, but I don't, maybe there might be some unscrupulous characters doing it purposefully, but generally, if sometimes I'll ask a leading question and all right, you know what, I'll clean it up on the back end. But it's not done purposefully, but it can be. Little Strange says, appreciate your commentary. Hi from Switzerland. Hey, what's going on, Switzerland? The Swiss. So I don't know. Today, I feel Johnny's team, their last witness, it's okay. It's okay. I think the cross of that witness was okay too. I didn't think it was really anything to write home about. I think the problem is I think they didn't end as strong as I wanted them to. I would like them to end. But so what? They didn't end that strong. I think on the back end though, this rebuttal case only having an hour left, the witnesses they put on haven't just like the picture guy. I think that was just a waste of time. I think the picture guy was just a waste of time. And I also think having this doctor come and try to rebut Curry, I think that did more harm than good. I think that did more harm than good. And I think it did more harm than good because unfortunately, she got shredded. She's trying to say Curry doesn't know what she's talking about, but then gets shredded, with the same literally objections. Curry's not being consistent. Curry's not filling out the forms. Curry's not reading the instructions. And then he literally goes and shows how she's not filling out the form, how she's not reading the instructions, right? It was a beautiful way to twist what she's saying right back at her. So it was, great cross-examination by then. I give him a lot of crap, but today he made it happen today. Super chat, hey Nate, why don't you live stream for the afternoon portion of the trial? Oh, because I go pick up my kids and stuff in the afternoon. And to be honest with you, I like in the morning, I like to kind of just see what's going on, and then in the afternoon, I like to go and I'll for those of you that know, I go to Legal Bites channel, I go to Nick's channel, I go around to Joe's channel generally, and I like to go around to those channels and just kind of figure out how I'm thinking about the trial. But I like to do this in the morning because I have free time and I kind of want to, it's that type of thing where I want to watch it by myself and just give my pure opinions on what I'm seeing. Because sometimes when you're watching with the group, their opinions really change, listen to what they're saying changes my opinion sometimes. So I'd rather kind of give my thoughts on it, then I'll go and have them challenge, and it helps me develop the reason why I think why I've come to the conclusions I've come to without that influence. So we'll see. Hey, not telling, hey, what's going on? So yeah, so but maybe one day I when I'm covering a trial, I generally do all day, but this is just just doing the morning. I'm interested in it, and I really I'm enjoying this trial. I think it's fun to watch. Amber Heard's legal team is Shannon and Rev are two internet crazies. Defending G-Man, who's another internet crazy, against Dragnet, who's my brother. Yes. Grammy knows all the crazies. I want to also say thank you for the 9. I'm not sure the currency, but thank you so much for it. I don't have anything to say, just trying to help pay. I appreciate the student loan payback. Yes, we all need, and we need more Democrats in there so they can pay us the student loans. Then we need Republicans in there so they can lower the taxes. Democrats in there to help me with student loans. Republicans in there to lower my taxes. I need somebody who does both of those. I thought A's rebuttal was restricted to her counterclaims. It's supposed to be, and that's why you saw a lot of that conversation about, hey, this is outside the scope of a rebuttal. You're talking about things that Curry said in the case in chief. So that's a lot. That's what a lot of that side action is. Is she going to need her notes again? That was for the beginning of the doctor's testimony. Seriously. So easy to change. We read this one. Yeah, it's because he was essentially their expert for the pictures, was said that the pictures were authentic, but he couldn't verify they were authentic, which is kind of weird, right? The pictures are authentic, but I can't verify they're authentic, which is like, then how do you know they're authentic? It just didn't make any sense. And I think the part that they got the expert with great was the 2 pictures that we know are identical, and he says, "Are you saying both these pictures are the original version?" And he couldn't say, you can't say yes, right? Because one's a copy. And then then he can't say no, because he just testified that everything that he saw was originals and was verified. So he put him in a bind there. So I think that's when that expert, everything he said was just nonsense after that to me. It's like, come on, just give up on the fact we know those pictures are the same. We know they couldn't have been taken at the same time. We know one was edited. We know one is not an original. Both of them can't be the original picture. So Oli says, did you find it odd Amber Heard's photo expert was dancing around the 2 photos being the exact same? Yes, I thought that was very odd, because it made him just seem, it just made him seem it made him make him seem credible. It just did. Even down to the time they were taken. Seemed awkward. Yeah, well, the thing is that he's this guy's a paid gun, a hired gun. So he knows he can't say that, right? He can't say that. So he's trying to dance around it, but we all know it. And that's really good for the other side. When one side is essentially bullshitting you, right? That's essentially what happened. He was just BSing. He would literally just be BSing everybody. And when that happens, the jury knows, like, people, it's easy for everybody to know, right? Oh, this is just BS. He's just telling us what he thinks we want to hear, or he thinks is going to help his case. When you could just give up a quick point like that, obviously those 2 pictures can't be the same. They can't be taken the same exact time and date and all that stuff, right? He knows that, we know that, but he struggled with that because he knew what I think he knew the implications of that. You put those in as 2, just to be clear too, they put those 2 pictures in as 2 separate individually taken pictures. This picture was taken in the dark. We turned on the light and we took the picture again at a later time. Right now, we know that those pictures weren't taken at 2 separate times. They were taken at the exact same date, time, second, everything. One is dark, one is light. That just doesn't happen. So we kind of lost some viewers because there was a lag. Yeah, it was a lag, a little lag earlier in the stream, but I don't know, maybe it might be the stream that they're using. So, I'm just going straight to the source. John O'Brien. And again, if you guys don't have to super chat questions either. If you guys put Q : or question : I'll definitely answer. I like to pick up those questions and answer them too. And Nate the lawyer, what do you think of the rumor that Amber Heard fired her PR team after they said, we can't polish the turd. We can't polish a turd. Like the one you left on Johnny's bed. Well, I would fire that PR team too. They weren't. The PR team wasn't doing what needed to be done, right? Because the fight that you're seeing here, I think, even in the media, is against the mainstream narrative, right? The mainstream narrative about this case for the past 5 years was always Johnny Depp is an abuser, Amber Heard is a victim, and we should believe all women. And Amber Heard's a woman, and she said she's abused, so we should believe her. And that's been the object. And Johnny Depp was a wife beater, right? And then after the Sun trial, after he lost the Sun trial, it was essentially gospel that he was a wife beater. So that is kind of was the PR version. Now she was winning, I think, the PR battle, right? She was winning the PR battle. I don't think anybody, even with a domestic violence arrest out there, she was still winning the PR battle. Just appreciate you sharing your time with us. Oh, thank you, Kia. Thank you. I appreciate that. But we also have to understand that for that time until Depp started leaking the videos and information, that's kind of what was the narrative in the mainstream. So then Depp, how do you combat that? Well, Depp went to the Daily Mail and he leaked his piece. But then Depp also kind of went anti-mainstream to YouTube, the Umbrella Guy, all these other people, and started leaking information. But for us, we, unlike the mainstream media, we rather just get the raw file and we'll just give you the raw file. So they needed people to disseminate the raw information without spin. And the mainstream media doesn't do that, right? CNN doesn't give you the news without spin, right? You're going to get spin. So who do you give it to? You give it to CNN? Do you give it to ABC, who's going to side with the other side? Or do you give it to, independent media, who knows who's going to put it out? And then you'll have some commentary after it's out. So I think Depp said, let me give it to the people who I know are going to put it out honestly. And that's where we're going to go. Let me get a couple of these questions coming down. Here's a question. What dollar value would you say both JD and Amber Heard are dropping on their attorneys? I think Depp, we're talking about at least $10 million plus, because I think they've been doing a lot more work. Amber Heard's team, she said that there was about 6-7 million. So, and that's what you'd expect. Don't forget, this trial is not just in Virginia. This trial is from California. You got all these experts. Think about just from the expert testimonies alone. Each one of these experts getting paid at least $500 to $1,000 an hour, $5,000 just to be sitting there in the courtroom. So you got hours of depositions. You got to pay all those doctors, all those experts, everybody to go give their testimony. Then you got to pay them to come into court and testify. Then you got to pay. So all of that, plus paying the lawyers, plus paying travel expenses, plus paying this. Depp is paying his lawyers to travel from Massachusetts. So there's a lot going on here. So yeah, so this is easily tens of millions of dollars on Depp, and I'm thinking Amber is pushing a lot of money too. She's pushing millions of dollars. I saw yesterday one of your colleagues said the judge does get the tape where Amber admits the bottle thing. The judge, I'm sorry, the jury does get the tape. I believe they do. I believe those tapes were read into evidence. So I think they're there. I think they're there. Let me get some of these super chats that are coming in, and I'll definitely circle back to your questions. We got 8 minutes left, people. Just also before I get to super chats, I want to give you guys a time check. So at time now, again, I've been literally keeping a stopwatch. So I stop it when they start, stop it sometimes. Sometimes I'll miss it by a minute. So this is being conservative. The range I have them left with was anywhere between 25 minutes and 20 minutes. And that's just literally just starting to cut and taking a minute off of whenever I stopped it too. So I'm at between 20 and 25 minutes. So there's a 5 minute lag. I don't know what 20 minutes left. What are you going to do? Nate, you're my hero. Bringing logic, reason, objective facts back into fashion in an incredibly insane world. Keep up the incredible work, my friend. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. I try. And thanks for the generous super chat. Thanks for the $20. I appreciate it, bro. Does not. And does not. I'm not sure what you're responding to, but let me know. But does not. Or maybe you don't like doesn't. So I'll say does not. I won't use the contraction. Jasper says if legal team feels like they're winning the trial after the other side has timed out, is it smart to rest the case, essentially quit while you're ahead? If you know what, the calculation at this point in time, Jasper, would be, do we put other people on that can help us or to hurt us? I think if you have some holes that you really think need to be closed up, then I would I would. But if not, if I think I've got the win, then I'll save us for summation. I saw your colleagues. So this is the when you said don't. So let me reread this. I saw yesterday one of your colleagues said the jury does not get the tape where Amber admits the bottle thing. Okay, well maybe they don't. I thought it was written evidence, but if they don't, that's also fine too. Okay. Interesting. I don't know. I think they do. Let me take that. Let me see if I can find some of these questions. All right, here's a quick question. Can you explain your impression of can you explain impeachment of a witness actually means, please? All right, impeachment of a witness doesn't mean impeachment of a witness means you have a witness who may have said something different now or testifying to something different now than they did before. So impeachment is not showing that the witness lied. It's just that the witness is not being consistent with their testimony. And generally, you can show a witness is lying or a witness is being deceitful, but what you're showing is that the witness is not being consistent. So here in this trial, as we've been seeing, when the witnesses take depositions early, so we get them to testify to certain facts, and ask them questions. When that witness is finished, that transcript is taken, right? So the witness is under oath and they've said all these things. So then in trial in front of the jury, but that's outside the jury, right? That's just we're getting their story. Then we get to the jury trial. Now we're presenting evidence to the jury. That same witness takes the stand. And you can ask, and then the question may be, you may have asked the witness in the deposition, what color was the car? And the witness says the car was red. Now on the stand, you ask the witness, well, what color was the car? And the witness says, I don't remember. So then you can refresh their recollection. Okay, here's what you said earlier. Now, reading your testimony before, do you remember? They'll say, okay. But now let's say if the witness says the car was blue. Well, then now you have some ground for impeachment. Well, and then you'll hear it's standard procedure. So when you have something like that, when you have a witness say, well, I said the car was red in deposition, but now it's saying the car is blue. The lawyer's next question will be, well, did you give a deposition in this case? Yes. Was that deposition given on whatever date? April 1st, 2020? Yes. Were you under oath when you gave this deposition? Yes. Then you'll see, may I approach? Here's a deposition. Go to page 5, line 23. And within that, you'll say, generally, sometimes you'll have the witness read it themselves. Question. What color was the car? Answer. The car was red. Did I read that correctly? The witness is going to say yes. And then that witness has been properly impeached and you move on, right? You don't make a big issue out of it, but you've pointed out the witness said blue, then the witness said red, and then you move on. And sometimes you may have a follow-up. So the car is not blue, it's actually red. But you might get an asked and answered or an objection because of that. So that's generally how the process of impeachment. You'll see it happen all throughout this trial. A lot of times when they say, isn't it true you said blah, 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 that's usually the hint to the witness that that you said something and that you got to say yes, because if you say no, they're going to go to the impeachment. So that's generally the trigger. Isn't it true you said before, did I say this before? If you don't know, you're in trouble. It's best to say I don't recall. But if you say no, then you're opening yourself to impeachment. Memories are frail. You can be wrong without lying. Yes, and that's what impeachment essentially is. And John is right. Impeachment is saying the person is essentially wrong or misremembered, but doesn't mean they're being lying. And that's why. And a lot of people kind of equate impeachment to perjury, which is just not the case, right? Perjury is I'm intentionally trying to mislead you, where impeachment is, you may have been mistaken or because these depositions were given years ago, right? You may have just been mistaken at this particular question, right? Oh, yeah, I was mistaken. Like the car was actually red. I misremembered it was blue. But yeah, I was correct back then. It wasn't. It was actually red. Sorry. Because that could just be an innocent mistake. But now if when he says the car is blue in the testimony in front of the jury, a lot of people think, well, it's impeachment. Not impeachment, perjury. He lied. But you got to prove that he intentionally lied the second time, which I don't think you can because he's already testified once under oath. He's testified differently. So, it could just be a mistake. And I think the law will look at it as a mistake unless you can prove that he intentionally lied. Under oath, unless anyone with time knows they'll get away with lying because they never charge perjury. That's true. That's true. Generally, never charge perjury, but it's it's the DA's office. There's so much they have to do that sometimes it's just hard to get through it. Do rhetorical tricks like when did you stop beating your wife? No, those questions would be objected to. When did you stop beating your wife really work in trial because they don't work for me? And they're not allowed in trial. Those are improper questions. It's the questions, especially something like this, unless you've laid the foundation. So the reason why this question would be, it's an improper question, number one, but also you have to lay the foundation to even ask this question. So first you'd have to lay, and that's where you'll see the objection foundation. I can't ask you, when did you stop beating your wife, without establishing that you beat your wife. So this question would be improper to even ask until I establish that. So at Amber Heard, for instance, I think we can establish that, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you hit her at the airport? Were there people there? That type of thing. You load up all those questions about her. And even with Johnny, isn't it true you punched him here? And it's true. When did you stop beating Johnny? That's after I've laid that foundation and showed people that she did beat Johnny. She's beaten him all these other times.
Are we ready for the jury?
Here we go. We're back.
Yes, sure.
So they're approaching again. So I'm hoping that, I know that was a long-winded explanation, but I hope it puts you into the mindset of letting you understand how these questions can be asked, in that this question can be asked, but it has to be asked under the proper scope, so it really depends, because if you, like for Amber Heard, I think you can ask her this question, but I think you can ask her this question after you kind of really, really lay it out. Isn't it true you punched him here? Isn't it true you beat? Isn't it true you beat him here? Isn't it true you punched him in the face in front of witnesses? When did you stop beating him? There it is, right? You've laid that foundation. I wish they would let us listen to their sidebars, because we're the jury of public opinion, but there may be some, but I understand why they can't. So a lot of people are saying, why don't they mic that up? Why don't they mic this up? And the reason why they don't, so people can understand, is that, sometimes they have to redact personal information. So up there, they can talk about personal information, things that aren't really public and things of that nature, because sometimes they'll have to discuss it with the jury. With the judge. So that's one of the reasons why we can't hear it. Question: what do you think about TMZ witness? I thought he was funny. I think he was good, and I think he came across as credible. Defamation is all about reputation. Facts. Sir's got it. Your rep is public opinion. Your rep is public opinion about you. Facts. While I can't recommend televised trials for all defamation cases, public opinion plays an important role in this one. Of course. Well, that is essentially one of the elements in defamation. So, you know what? I can of course teach you law, because I'm about to say I'm thinking the trial's going to start, so I can't teach you law. So it's in defamation. It's really, a lot of people don't realize this, but in defamation, the defamatory statements a statement can be defamatory for me. It may not be defamatory for you. So for instance, let's say I was an accountant and the person says, well, Nate is an accountant. I'm a licensed accountant. I've been an accountant for 20 years. It says, Nate doesn't know basic accounting principles. And I know for a fact he's never got certified in basic accounting, right? That statement, which if I can prove it to be false, right, that I'm certified, they can say Nate has never been certified. Nate is a bad accountant. He doesn't know principles. He doesn't know any of the principles of accounting. He doesn't know GLAD, generally accepted. He doesn't know any of that stuff. I know for a fact he doesn't know nothing. That would be defamatory to me as an accountant, but not to me as Nate the lawyer, right? If you're saying, I don't know, I would say, yeah, I don't know any of that stuff. But if I'm an accountant and my livelihood is dependent upon that, then you saying that about me is hurting my reputation and can damage me and is defamatory to me, when it may not be defamatory to other people. So it's really dependent on what on how it affects the person's reputation and what matter. Here we go. Remember, they got about 20 to 25 minutes left. And we're not even at lunchtime yet. If they're going to call Amber, they got to call her now. The reports yesterday, they were going to call Amber Heard. If they call Amber, they got to call her now because there's essentially no more time left, right? Unless you got to call another witness.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. All right, your next witness.
Your Honor, defendant calls Amber Heard.
All right, Ms. Heard, if you come to the stand, please.
Who is the greatest right now? Who called it, baby? If you're going to call Amber, you got to call it now, right? You got no more time
Yes, ma'am.
left.
Water.
This is it. Amber back. I'm going to shut up, but this is why you watch this stream. Right out my mouth.
Thank you, ma'am. Just a reminder, you're still under oath, okay?
Get out of
For
here,
sure.
bot.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, your question.
Amber, just to orient you and the jury, at this time, we are in the rebuttal to your counterclaim against Mr. Depp. So I'm going to confine my questions to that, okay?
All right.
How have you suffered publicly as a result of the Depp-Waldman statements?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
Yeah, that's overruled.
I am harassed, humiliated, threatened every single day.
Victim impact statement.
Even just walking into this courtroom, sitting here in front of the world, having the worst parts of my life, things I've lived through, used to humiliate me. People want to kill me, and they tell me so every day.
That's crazy.
People want to put my baby in the microwave.
What?
And they tell me that.
Why are you letting
Johnny,
out of court statements in?
Threatened, promised me that if I ever left him, he'd make me think of him every single day that I lived.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Yes, she is not responsive.
I'll sustain the objection as to that. If you want to ask the question.
Yeah, you can ask a question and just give a speech. That's what he's
Amber,
actually doing.
How did Mr. Depp's statements and threats to you that you were discussing, how do those continue to manifest themselves today?
A lot of numbers, Nate.
In the harassment and the humiliation, the campaign against me that's echoed every single day on social media and now in front of cameras in this room. Every single day I have to relive the trauma. My hands shake. I wake up screaming. I have to live with the trauma and the damage done to me. My friends have to live with a set of unspoken rules about how to not scare me.
Objection, hearsay.
Yes, sir.
Unspoken rules.
Overruled. Go ahead.
About how to not touch me, not to surprise me. My intimate partners have rules about how they can deal with me, how they can touch me. I have rules for doctors and medical professionals I see, gynecologists I see. I live my life with these sets of rules that I have to follow, my friends have to follow for me not to have a panic attack or a triggering event where I relive the trauma. Even if I'm training to do my movie, for instance, if I'm training for Aquaman, a combat scene and a trigger happens, I have a meltdown and have to deal with that. The crew I work with have to deal with that because of the damage I walk around with every single day from what I've lived through, from what I've survived. I'm not sitting in this courtroom snickering. I'm not sitting in this courtroom laughing, smiling, and making snide jokes. I'm not. This is horrible. This is painful. And this is humiliating for any human being to go through. And perhaps it's easy to forget that, but I'm a human being.
This is the Hail Mary, people.
And even though Johnny promised that I deserve this and promised he'd do this, I don't deserve this. I want to move on.
This is the big finish.
The
And
attacks on me, the campaign,
the Oscar goes too. She's going for it.
that Johnny has elicited millions of people to do on his behalf when he himself
Objection, Your Honor,
couldn't
lack
do
of
it.
foundation.
Yes.
Torture me.
Speculation.
I'll sustain the objection. Next
She's
question.
all over the place.
Amber,
Camille
how have
is
the Depp
Camille's
Waldman
ready, is
statements
waiting.
impacted
You know, Camille
your
is like,
ability
I got it
to do charitable work?
Webcams, you are
You know-
blocked forever. Stop it, webcam.
The only reason that people like Dr. Curry can sit up here on the stand and say I'm high functioning and I do things like have hobbies and have interests is
Objection,
because I'm not.
non-responsive.
Your Honor,
She's not
Mr.
responding
Depp
to
gave
it.
long-winded responses
Overruled,
yesterday.
good.
She's not responding to the question.
It's because I found a solution to that pain. I woke up every morning with panic attacks and trauma until I realized I could do something with it. So to answer your question, Ben,
finish.
it's I was able to turn the things that I've lived through, my pain, my life experiences, into work, into action, into providing a voice for other people. I'm not a saint. I'm not trying to present myself as one, as you all know, but I selfishly found
That's exactly what you're
relief
trying to do.
in being able to use what I've lived through to
I'm not trying to
advocate
present
for
myself as a
others,
saint.
to bring light to
Liar.
these issues, to give a voice to people who don't have the voice and the platform that I have. And while I would not wish this situation on my worst enemy,
Classic, you're right.
if it gives a voice to someone who doesn't have it,
She stared into me too
but I
hard.
now, as I stand here today, can't have a career. I can't even have people associate with me because of the threats and the attacks that they have to endure.
Objection,
when they are.
non-responsive.
And I can't do my charity work.
Sustain the objection.
Amber, other than the threats that you've described, what other threats have you endured since the Depp Waldman statements were made?
I receive hundreds of death threats regularly, if not daily. Thousands since this trial has started. People mocking my testimony about being assaulted, making fun of my.
Objection, relevance. Non-responsive.
Goes to damages. You can continue.
She's trying to act it out right now, baby. But she's got to be
Agonizing.
crossed though. Do it.
Agonizing,
Ah,
painful,
I might be going the whole
and it was
thing. people.
humiliating.
I'm going to watch it get crossed. She's only got
Thing
20
I've ever
minutes.
had to go through. I hope no one ever has to go through something like this.
Yeah, we only got 20 minutes.
Oh,
This has already been going on for 5.
I just want Johnny to leave me alone. I just want him to leave me alone.
15 minutes, people.
I've
You
said
got
that
15 minutes.
for years now, and I thought he would after
Objection,
2020.
non-responsive.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
What do you hope to reclaim after this is over?
Protecting the secret that I did for as long as I did has taken enough of my voice. Johnny has taken enough of my voice. I have the right to tell my story. I have the right to say what happened to me. I have the right to my voice and my name. He took it long enough. I have a right as an American
Non-responsive means you're not answering the question. You're
to
answering
talk
something
about
else.
what happened to me, to own my story and my truth. I have that right.
Her truth,
I hope to get my voice back.
not the truth. Her truth.
It's all I want. And I've said that from day one.
Thank you, Amber. I don't have anything else.
All right,
What?
cross-examination.
That's it? All right, stopping the clock. They had to do some time, so right now they're down to 15 minutes.
Actually, Your Honor, may we approach? for
Yes,
brief-
yes.
They're down to 15 minutes. Wow. Ugh. So now Camille gets the crosser. She's learning hearsay. I am a woman. Hear me cry. Oh no, they're going for the big finish right now. Can't JD show that he suffered the same but worse? Yes. But now the problem is that Amber is on the stand for cross, and they didn't have a lot of time. Why put her on to have her say essentially nothing, right? Essentially, what did she testify to, right? I'm a victim. The internet's mean to me. I got some death threats. Like, I don't know how this helped her. Depp's rep was hurt by criminal charges. Yes, but there wasn't criminal charges. But his rep was hurt by saying that he committed these crimes, but was not allowed a trial to defend. 100% correct, Sarah. I'm sorry. I read that wrong, but you're 100% correct. Even if he doesn't meet the burden of proof, he has proven he would not have been convicted if he had been brought to a criminal trial. I agree 110%. There's no way a criminal charge would have, because she's too unreliable of a witness. Is that wrong for me to say? I know I'm going to have the Me Too people say, "Nate, you got to believe all women, this," but it's not my. I don't believe her, because I just don't believe the facts that she put up. Right? It's that, and it's just, I understand she's up there for the emotional win, right? She wants to end on the emotional win. She wants to be the last witness, and I'm going to go out on an emotional win. But Camille is up there going to try to kill her right now. I don't know why you would, and you saw what happened with Camille before. So this is going to be good. Again, with the fake crime. Didn't someone tell her about bad acting? Yeah. I don't know if it's a fake crime. I don't know. I don't believe anything this woman says. Is she getting death threats? Who knows, right? I don't know if she is or not. She probably, well, I've gotten death threats for doing this. So is it likely? Yeah, but I'm not understand crying about these death threats. I think Amber went against her lawyer's advice here. They probably would have told her not to go back on the stand, right? What do you think, Nate? Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. I'm like, yo, you're not going back up. If you're going back up, you're going to have to just give a speech, because it's insane to put you back up. Camille's over there. You know who the hell's on the other side? Did you see what happened last time? I would tell Camille is going to kill you. I can barely ask you any questions because I want to, and I've been assuming that's what Rottenborn did. Rottenborn asked the questions to limit the scope, right? Let's just keep the scope. And now Camille is up there saying, I want to open the scope back up, right? I want to open the scope back up. And that's what they're deciding now. How far can Camille go? Because Camille's going up there. So if I'm Amber's attorneys, I'm like, we saw what happened before. Unless the scope is limited, putting you back on is a mistake. And the fact that we only have a little bit of time left, I can't get you. If you get caught out there, it's going to be brutal. That's why I think Rottenborn left himself all this time. He left himself about 10, 15 minutes after this so they can get going. So they've got 15 minutes, right? So he's, just in case she gets crushed, he can do something. So that seems to be their plan. Joseph, thank you for the super stick. I appreciate it, bro. I appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you guys for all the generous super chats. You guys know this is the stream is demonetized, so essentially, and when that happens, it sucks because without you don't get any of the ad revenue. But I enjoy doing the stream, so it's funny. They were like, you don't get the super. I'm like, well, it's fun for me to do it. If they eventually do it and people watch it, it's fine. But I'm just happy being here, and I'm happy being to watch this with you guys. This is amazing. Her own story. TMZ owns most of it. You're cold, classic. You're cold. All right, so yeah, I'm assuming, again, I don't know for a fact. I'm assuming. Let me kill some of these bots. Block these bots. Yeah, bots. Bots be gone. Bots be gone. Oh, somebody else took care of the bots. All right. This one says, I'm waiting for Camille to give her a Tom Cruise impression with I want the truth. Yeah. You know Camille is coming to kill her. I don't know why you would do this. Camille is coming for she's coming to bomb her. I don't know why you put her on like this. I understand you wanted to get the last word out. Camille's coming. She's coming, and she's coming hot. I don't know what's going on. Why do this to your client? Why do this to her? This is crazy. Let me look here. I'm trying to see. Oh, this is Whitney. Wendy's looking like, she's about to go down hard. Wendy's like, this is no joke. You see Dr. Curry, Dr. Curry, not Dr. Curry, Dr. Hughes is from New York because she got a mask on. So they got us trained well here in New York about these damn masks. So yeah, that's why you got to move to Texas. Freedom, mask freedom. Even though, to be honest with you, I wear a mask. Let me stop acting up. I wear a mask too. So I don't want you guys nasty stuff getting on me. Mary Kelly says, this is a good moment to bring the spikes in SM activity as it relates to the audio of Amber coming out rather than the Waldman statements. Yes. Ooh, I do agree. It's a good moment to bring up the spikes, but I think you got so much more that you can get from her. I would let that go, Mary. I'm just going to be honest with you. As a practical matter, Camille's got 7 hours to kind of do whatever the hell she wants, And again, cross-examinations. Thank you, Helen, for the super sticker. Cross-examinations for people, we all need to understand this before we get too far down this rabbit hole. I need you guys to understand this. First, thanks to the monster for keeping everything on track. You guys must understand this. You guys got to understand this. Cross-examination is not a dance. It's a commando raid, right? We're not sitting there. I don't want to be your friend. I don't want to start talking about your life. I don't want to let you give a speech, right? It's a commando raid. We get in, we blow everything up, and then we get the hell out. That's the way commando raids work, right? We're not taking over the country. We're blowing it up and getting the hell out and let you rebuild. But now with 7 hours, the balance is, do we do damage and do commando raid, or do we continue to do what we got to do? So that I think is going to be the poll to make sure cross-examination doesn't go too far where you're just hammering a nail that's already in, right? So that's what I think but Camille's got so much to work with. They're up there this long right now. I'm convinced, even though I don't know, but I'm convinced they're talking about the scope, because if you notice, his questions were very limited in scope, and he's probably up there arguing her cross-examination cannot go beyond the scope of direct. And that's what she's arguing. No, she's up there for rebuttal. That opens up everything. So let's see what the judge is saying. She's talking to Rottenborn. Boy, what I love to hear. Thank you for the great coverage and insight. Oh, thanks, fella. I appreciate it, bro. I appreciate it so much. Thank you. Thanks for all your. Oh, thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Thanks for $10. I appreciate it. Nate for president, Elon Musk for VP. I appreciate it. After he buys Twitter, then I know Twitter can't kick me off if I'm president. It's funny. So the news yesterday, I was in a debate with somebody about this case, and they were like, "Yo, Nate, this is all the right leaning MAGA maniacs. They're it's all right leaning." I'm like, no. I'm like, look at the Young Turks are saying that she's lying. They're like, oh, but what about believe all women? I'm like, they're saying it's the left people who are saying don't believe Amber Heard, right? Most people, it's these aren't just all right-wing extremists, right? These aren't all Trump supporters. So then they were like, oh, but the right wing, right? So this is what it gets down to, and I get it from the right and the left. So the person was like, oh, well, we should believe all women, right? We should just believe them. So I was like, so you believe all the women that accused Joe Biden, obviously, right? Well, you see, it's not really that way. And, I'm like, hold on. We were supposed to believe everybody. Then we came to but the person essentially believed all the women accusing Trump, but didn't believe any other women accusing Biden. Really? Like, come on. And then you reverse. I have a friend of mine who believes all the women who are accusing Biden, but all the women accusing Trump. So, that's why it's not believe all women. It's believe the facts and evidence in front of you, right? And essentially, if somebody's telling me something happens to me, I believe you. But then I have to find the facts and evidence to back it up, right? And I believe you based on if the story makes sense. If you come and tell me that you were abducted by aliens, they took you to the moon, you had an encounter and then come back down, I'm not going to believe that story. I'm just not going to believe that story, right? I got to evaluate the story to believe it. I just don't believe anything wholesale. If that's the case, then I'd be believing nonsense. And that was just a waste of time. Hobo Jim says, Camille is asking if she can lay some plastic on the floor in case it gets messy. She's still up there. See, Rottenborn is making... Now, you got to give Rottenborn credit. he is making the argument. He's saying, please, Your Honor, don't let her ask whatever she wants. If you do this, we're going to destroy our case. And I only got 15 minutes to clean it up. Narrow the scope. I only asked her a couple of questions. It was quick. It shouldn't be this long. We'll see. We will see. Let me get this super chat. Here we go. Is a testimony of abuse given immunity? No, it's not. You can talk about abuse. I hit Johnny. I didn't punch you. Yes. Why doesn't that kind of evidence result in extra charges from the state? Well, all right. Two things. Great question, right? It didn't happen in Virginia. So Virginia can't charge Amber for hitting Johnny in Australia. It's the authorities in Australia that would have to do that. When she hit him in California, it's the California authorities who would have to take that up. So when it comes to criminal charges, that would be in those jurisdictions where those crimes happened. So Virginia can't hold you criminally liable for a crime you committed in California. That's the California officials that do that. But here in Virginia, since the defamatory statements were made in Virginia, Virginia has jurisdiction or has authority to hear those claims and dispense judgment on those claims because it happened in Virginia. The Washington Post article was published in Virginia. The printing press are in Virginia, but the crimes happened in California, in Australia, and all these other places. Now, if these crimes were happening in Virginia, then we have the Virginia authorities could probably press criminal charges. So that's a long-winded answer to that question, but it's a very, very good question because a lot of these things that they're testifying to are crimes in most of the places. So, yeah, they're definitely arguing about the scope. Michael Green, $5. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, they're arguing about the scope. Look at that. Because that's what Camille got. She's like, listen, if she's testified to all this, I can ask it. That's what we're doing. They're arguing about the scope. I would be arguing about the scope. What else could we be arguing about? Look at Rotten Boy. He's like, please don't let her go with it. It's crazy. Why are they holding it up? Come on, Camille. I want to see Camille do her thing. Nate, you are my favorite live stream of these trials to watch. Oh, I appreciate that. Keep bringing the fire with the facts and knowledge. By the way, do you think anyone believes Amber staged cry? A lot of noise, but no actual cry. I don't believe it. But there are people out there who think about this. I want to put this up one time. Megyn Kelly believed Amber's story on the first time, right? And some people are saying that that's the reason why I got double booked and all that stuff. I don't believe so. I think Megyn Kelly and her crew are professionals, and it was just an accident. But after Amber's first appearance and the first tears and everything, Megyn Kelly believed her, right? Went on and said, I believe her. Then after the cross-examination, Megyn Kelly said she didn't believe her. So some people are fooled by this thing. And it just is. Now, I think this break hurt Amber because all that emotional wave that she had just built up with the crying is done. Camille has a book of case law. The other side has Bill. As no. I said no. Here we go. Grant, I'll get your
you
after
just
this.
testified that this case has been very hard for you. So let's talk about that and why.
All right.
Your lies have been exposed to the world multiple times, right?
I haven't lied about anything I've been here to say.
You sat here and told this jury that the events in Hicksville started with Mr. Depp getting really upset about a woman leaning on you. Is that correct?
Yes, that's effectively what happened, yeah.
You testified that he actually grabbed that woman's wrist and twisted it, right?
And told her that he could effectively break her wrist by saying he knew how many pounds of pressure, or asking her how many pounds of pressure it took to break a human wrist.
But your own witness, your former best friend, Rocky Pennington, she didn't corroborate that, did she?
I'm not quite sure what part of that night she saw. There were a lot of people there.
She didn't testify that Mr. Depp grabbed anyone's wrist in Hicksville.
Again, I don't know what Rocky saw. There were a lot of people there that night.
You testified that once you brought Mr. Depp back to your trailer, he trashed it, correct?
That is correct.
And the manager of the Hicksville trailer park was furious that Johnny had wrecked the whole thing. Do you remember that testimony?
That's correct.
Well, we heard from that manager of the Hicksville trailer park, Morgan Knight, on Monday, didn't we?
I'm not quite sure who that guy was or if he had any involvement in this. I know a lot of
He was the
people come out
manager.
of the woodwork to be involved.
So you're accusing Mr. Knight of testifying and committing perjury?
I'm not accusing anyone. I
Yes.
just don't recognize that man.
You heard Mr. Knight testify that it was actually you who was upset with Mr. Depp spending time away from him. Isn't that correct?
Thank you, kidding.
How would he know? He wasn't there.
You heard Mr. Knight testify that it was actually you who was yelling at Mr. Depp.
Again, I've heard a lot
I
of
don't know.
people say a lot of
John, I
things
don't
to be
know.
involved in the Johnny Depp show, but he wasn't there. He doesn't know. And he certainly doesn't know what happened.
The
behind
manager
closed
and
doors,
owner doesn't know.
like most people.
So you're calling Mr. Knight a liar?
He's a
I
liar.
am saying he wasn't there.
He wasn't
And
there.
what
He's a
he
liar.
testified to doesn't match what I know happened. But I don't fault him. He wasn't there, so how would he know?
He testified he was there, Ms. Heard. Did you hear that?
That's his testimony, yes.
So you're calling him a liar.
I'm just saying he wasn't there.
You heard Mr. Knight testify that the trailer wasn't trashed, and that's why you're calling him a liar.
He testified that a light fixture was broken, similar to the way that
Yes,
Johnny's
other than a light
employees
fixture. That was
testified
the
to
only
my
thing that was
closet being
broken, right? Ms.
rearranged
Heard?
and things
Ms.
like
Heard?
that.
The only thing that was broken in the trailer, according to Mr. Knight, was a light fixture. Yes or no?
I realized that he
Yes or
summed
no?
it up by saying a light
She's
fixture was
upset.
broken, just the way his
She's letting
security
us
guard
speak.
summed up him trashing my closet as being rearranged.
Your Honor, I'm going to move to strike everything after he summed it up, that it was a light fixture, as non-responsive.
She answered the question, Your Honor.
Overruled.
In the security guard testimony, Your Honor?
I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Mr. Knight also testified that he charged Mr. Depp only $62 for the damaged light fixture. You heard that, correct?
I did.
In Hicksville, you were the only one that was jealous that Mr. Depp was spending time from other people. Isn't that correct, Ms. Heard?
That is incorrect.
In Hicksville, you were the one who was upset that Mr. Depp wasn't giving you enough attention.
Incorrect again.
Everybody's lying.
Ms. Heard, you told this jury that you had no idea the press was going to be at the courthouse when you got your TRO on May 27th, 2016. Do you remember that testimony?
I said I did not have anything to do with it. Yes.
No. I question again.
I
You
question
told
again.
this jury that you had no idea that the press was going to be outside after you got the ex-party TRO on May 27th, 2016. Do you remember that testimony?
I apologize. I must have misunderstood Ms. Vasquez. I actually had no idea whether they were going to be there or not. When I walked into the courtroom that day, it was completely quiet, still, empty. Even though I had given Johnny's team notice that I was filing a
Objection, Your
TRO,
Honor, this is not
we had no
responsive.
reason to
Move to
believe the
strike.
press knew.
And Your Honor, I would also ask that you instruct the witness to please stop talking once I lodge an objection.
Your Honor, she's trying to answer the question as best she can, and Ms. Vasquez is misrepresenting to her what she testified to.
I'll strike the last part as
Thank you,
non-responsive.
Your
Just if you could just answer the questions asked. Okay, thank you, Ms. Heard.
Just answer the question.
In fact, you testified that you were, quote, shocked when you saw press when you were
Thanks,
leaving the
Marty.
courthouse. Yes?
Yes.
You weren't shocked at all, though, were you?
Incorrect. It was
You knew the press
horrifying.
would be at the courthouse, right, Ms. Heard?
No.
Well, you did bring your publicist to the courthouse with you on May 27th, 2016, didn't you?
I sure did. I'm a public figure. I brought my publicist in case it blew up. In case. And
You
I'm
actually
glad
had
I did.
alerted TMZ that you would be filing a TRO against Mr. Depp that very
No,
day,
I did
didn't
not.
you?
No, I did
The
not.
one day you didn't bother to wear makeup to cover up the mark on your face.
I did not call TMZ or any
Mm-hmm.
other news source or paparazzi source. No one.
Well,
I
we
never
heard
did that.
testimony from former TMZ employee Morgan Tremaine yesterday, correct?
Did I hear his testimony?
Yes.
Yes, I was here.
Yes. And you heard Mr. Tremaine's testimony that he knew to dispatch the paparazzi to the courthouse on May 27th, right?
I heard him say that he knew that, yes.
Yeah, and that he dispatched paparazzi to the courthouse to capture a picture of an alleged bruise on the right side of your face. Do you remember him saying that?
I remember him saying that.
That information must have come from your team, right, Ms. Heard?
Absolutely not. Why would I want that? What actual survivor of domestic violence wants that?
You.
Now, the video of Mr. Depp beating up some kitchen cabinets, you admit that you took that video, correct?
Yes, I did.
And you acknowledge that the video was released online the day before you were deposed in connection with your divorce from Mr. Depp in August of 2016, right?
I believe it was, yes.
But you testified that you had absolutely nothing to do with the video's release, right?
Absolutely not.
And you testified that you learned about it when you landed after flying into LA. Do you remember that testimony?
Upon touchdown is when I was alerted to the video's
You
existence
heard Mr.
online.
Tremaine testify that about this video as well yesterday, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you heard Mr. Tremaine testify that TMZ received the cabinet video the same day you landed at LAX. Yes?
I don't know if that's what his testimony was. I'm sorry.
You heard Mr. Tremaine testify that the cabinet video was posted 15 minutes after TMZ received it. Yes?
That's what I heard him say.
And that this could only have been possible if the video was received directly from the source. Yes?
I heard him say that. I don't know if that's true or if that's possible because it didn't come from me. I was flying.
Tremaine
So
testify.
I know that's incorrect is what I mean to say.
Another liar on the stand.
Another liar. Another liar.
And you heard Mr. Tremaine testify that TMZ owns the copyright to the cabinet video, right?
That's news to me.
The cabinet video you filmed of your then husband. Yes?
The copyright ownership of that is news to me. I learned that yesterday.
It's the cabinet video that you captured of your then husband. Yes?
That is correct. I did capture that video. And
The
yes,
cabinet
that was my
video-
husband.
The same cabinet video that was released the night before you were deposed in your divorce. Yes?
That's correct.
You must have also heard Mr. Tremaine testify that the version of the cabinet video that TMZ received was incomplete compared to the video the jury saw in this trial. Did you hear that?
The video that you have seen is complete.
Right. But the one TMZ got the day before your deposition in the divorce was incomplete.
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
He testified that at the beginning portion of the video where you set up the camera, that wasn't included in the video that TMZ received.
I don't know what video TMZ
I'm talking
received.
about Mr. Tremaine's testimony, Ms. Hurd. Let's just
You're
focus on
asking me to
Mr.
repeat
Tremaine.
his testimony?
No, I'm asking you if you recall hearing him say those words to this jury.
Yes,
Under oath.
I heard his testimony. We all did.
And he testified that the end of the video where you can be seen smirking. I know you testified earlier that you haven't been smirking in this trial, but you sure were caught on camera smirking in that video.
I disagree with that.
Was also not included in the TMZ video.
Everyone can watch that video and you can determine whether you think it's funny to me or not.
That's because the video came from you, right, Ms. Hurd?
No, it did not.
You
That
edited
video
out
did
the
not
portions.
come to me.
Ms.
I mean,
Hurd,
come from me.
Ms. Hurd, you edited out the portions that made you look bad before sending it to TMZ.
You're very wrong about that.
So that
If I
only
wanted to
Mr.
leak
Depp
information, I
looked
could have
bad.
done it in a more effective way, a lot sooner and a lot more.
Because you
I
knew
was
exactly
living
how to
with
do
a
that,
mountain
right?
of this evidence. If I wanted to leak it, I could have done a lot more with it.
I thought you testified earlier in this trial that you didn't know how to leak things.
I
Remember
don't.
that?
Oh, she did say she didn't know how to leak it.
You
Now
edited
she
that
says she
video
could've did a
before
lot
you gave it
easier.
to TMZ so that only Mr. Depp would look bad. Yes?
That's absurd.
Right in the middle of your divorce proceedings.
Again, you're very wrong.
See, it doesn't matter the answer.
I'd like to
That's the
show you a picture from that's already admitted into evidence. It's Defendant's Exhibit 799.
Going back to pictures now. She's a leaker. Now this is fundamental cross-examination, right? Have her.
This is
she's
you
not
at the
arguing for this,
courthouse
she's
on May
arguing with all the
27th,
evidence, right?
2016, when you got your domestic violence restraining order against Mr. Depp, right?
It is.
And next to you is a woman named Jody Gottlieb, right?
Yes, yes.
Jody Gottlieb is your publicist.
And dear friend.
Now I'd like to show you what's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1316. This is a picture of you and your friend Rocky Pennington, right?
That is correct.
Your Honor, I'd like to move to admit this photograph.
Any objection to 1316?
No, Your Honor.
All right, 1316 in evidence. You can publish the jury.
This is a picture of you on May 28th, 2016, right, Ms. Hurd?
I don't know when this was taken.
This is the day after you obtained the domestic violence restraining order against Mr. Depp, right?
I have no idea when this image was
Wow,
taken.
there's
I did
nothing on
not
her
take
face.
it.
There's
Oh
no
my God.
bruise on your face in this picture, is there?
Oh,
Again, I don't know when this was taken. And also, I'm
Busted.
outside. I was obviously wearing makeup.
there's
I
nothing
have
on her
no idea when this was taken, so I have no idea if I can
Let's
speak to
refresh your
what
recollection.
bruise you can see
Let's
or not.
refresh your recollection about when this picture was taken.
They
Can you
got
please
her.
pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 1315,
Oh,
just for
they
the
got
witness?
her. I didn't even know that was in there. The next
This is an
day.
article dated May 30th, 2016, right, Ms. Hurd?
That's what it says, yes.
Yo, they
And this
got
article
him.
contains the same photograph of you and Miss Pennington we were just looking at. Yes?
Yes, I see that.
And the article is entitled Amber Heard Smiles as She Puts Arm Around Friend One Day After Getting Restraining Order Against Johnny Depp. Is that what the title says?
I know that's what the title says, yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to move to admit and publish the article with everything but the headline and date and the photo redacted.
Objection, Your Honor. That's inconsistent from the way you treated all of these.
I'll sustain the objection. All right, next question.
Let's take a look at picture Plaintiff's Exhibit 1317.
Wow. The next day, no brew.
This is also a picture
The
of you and Miss
brew-
Pennington on May 28th, 2016, isn't it?
I don't know when this photo was taken, but it looks like the same outing as the picture prior.
Your Honor, I'm going to move to admit and publish Plaintiff's Exhibit 1317.
Any objection?
No, Your
All
Honor.
right, 1317 in evidence, you can publish.
Wow.
There's no bruise on your face in this picture either, right?
I disagree.
Wow.
If it is taken when you represent it was taken, then obviously there's a bruise on my face. It's covered by makeup as per usual.
Wow.
Let's zoom out of that picture for a moment, please. Thanks, Tom. That's Josh Drew in this picture, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And Miss Pennington
That is correct.
in there too? Miss
That is
Pennington submitted a sworn statement on your behalf in support of your domestic violence restraining order, didn't she?
I believe she did, yes.
Mercy,
Mr.
Your
Drew
Honor.
also submitted a statement in support of your domestic violence restraining order.
I believe they both did,
Call
yes.
it the ambulance.
Mr. I'd like to show you Defendant's Exhibit
Wow.
512, which is already in evidence.
She is destroying her once. And again, understand the theme.
You've seen this photograph before, right?
I have.
Everyone else is lying except
On the
her.
second day of your direct testimony, you testified that this was taken in the downstairs of the main apartment on December 15th, 2015. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I believe so.
That's what she said.
So it's your testimony that Defendant's Exhibit 512 reflects damage to Penthouse 5 that occurred during the December 15th, 2015 incident. Yes?
I'm not quite sure from what incident this is when I see this photo in a vacuum without context.
Let's give you that context. Can we please, thanks. I could have day 16 trial testimony.
Woo! So this is so what they're doing is saying you said this picture was from this particular day, this particular time. That's it. She said, "Well, I don't know where this picture's from." So they said, "All right, let's get your trial testimony. This is impeachment, people. Let's get your trial testimony. Let's see what you said about this picture then." Here we go. What did she say? What do you guys think she said? Do you think she said she didn't know back then?
Could you
or do think
please
she knew?
turn first to page 4585?
So they're going back to a truck. So they were ready for this. Oh, why put her back on a stand to be abused like this? This is not even fair.
Sorry, one second.
Specifically starting on line 16, where it says, "Let's talk about December 15th, 2015.
You said 458, I'm on 4485, sorry. You said 4584.
4585.
Pardon.
Line 16.
Get your lying ass there. Unforced error number 2. Yeah, when they say, "Didn't you say this in the past?" She's not. When you say that to Amber
Line
Heard, you don't know
16,
what
where
the
it
hell's
says,
gonna
"Let's
happen.
talk about December 15th, 2015. You see that?
Yes.
And then do you see that your testimony about December 15th, 2015 follows?
Let's see. It's just the first line or two.
She sees it follows. She's trying to slow it down. She's trying to read ahead too to see what she said.
Yes.
Okay. Now I'd like you to turn to page 4603,
You'll have to pick up a vacuum. Yeah.
starting at line 12.
I think career's over.
4603.
This is end of Aquaman 2. You're watching Mira get taken out. Justice League stuff.
starting at line 12 and going on to page 4604, line 4.
Cam is funny.
Okay.
And do you see that you testify that defendant's exhibit 512, which is on the screen,
Yes,
is a picture of the downstairs of the main apartment?
that's correct.
And the main apartment is penthouse 5 in the Eastern Columbia building, right?
No, well,
Yes,
depends
that's
on
what it
what,
is.
the main apartment's penthouse 3 generally when we say main apartment.
Penthouse 5 was where you had your closet?
The downstairs is kind of like, had some of my painting
Actually,
studio
broken
set
like
up and a reception area. Upstairs
She's
was the
trying to clean
closet.
it up.
Mezzanine office was in between.
All
Trying to
right,
clean
so
it
it's
up.
your testimony that defendant's exhibit 512 reflects damage to the penthouse 5, that occurred during the December 15th, 2015 incident, right?
I'm just not sure from which incident this is a picture of, since I'm only looking at
Even
a
though your
partial
counsel
floor.
was asking you questions about December 15th, 2015, and then admitted this picture into evidence
Again,
in
in my
relation to that incident.
sorry, go ahead.
In
What?
relation to that incident on December 15th, 2015. This exhibit, defendant's exhibit, you are the defendant, number 512, was admitted into evidence in this court. You testified that this was a result of damage that occurred on December 15th, 2015. Yes or no?
I just need to orient myself because I'm just looking at a picture of a partial
No,
picture of a
Ms. Heard,
floor.
you didn't just look at a
You're
picture.
dying. You're dying.
You looked at your
You're
testimony.
dying. You're
You
dying.
pointed me towards the page and then asked me a question. I haven't actually reviewed it. I don't know if this was submitted in relation to that incident.
She's dying.
Let's pull up, let's actually leave up defendant's 512 and please pull up defendant's exhibit 725.
All right. Since
Which is
now she
already in
doesn't know
evidence.
where the
In
picture was
redacted form,
taken,
Your Honor.
or even
All
if she
right, thank
testified
you.
the picture was taken
Side by side.
to the fit on this, she doesn't know.
You've seen this photograph as well, right?
I have.
On the third day of your direct testimony, you testified that this photograph reflected spilled wine in Penthouse 5 on May 21st, 2016, didn't you?
Again, I don't know because I'm looking at a partial picture of a floor. So unless you remove the metadata you've covered up, we could then tell. If you
I didn't cover
remove-
it up, Your Honor.
Could we unredact
Your Honor
them
did.
so we could get context?
That's how it's in evidence.
That's how it's in evidence.
Next
Well, the metadata next to it is so that.
Ms.
to
Heard,
avoid this
Ms.
sort of
Heard, there is
confusion.
no question pending, and I would appreciate it if you wouldn't be making argument to the jury.
Sorry, I
It's
thought you had
inappropriate.
asked me about it.
No, I didn't ask you about anything. Let's look at your direct testimony from the third day.
Yeah, Camille's going to kill her. She's going to kill her. Camille's going for the kill.
Yes, ma'am.
Spilt wine on the 15th. Spilt wine on said it was the 21st.
Thank you.
The pictures don't make sense. They're all over the place. The same pictures, but they're all for different days.
Let's turn to page 4750 in day 17 transcript.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
4750.
Mira joins the Suicide Squad. Ugh. Yeah, she's gonna be with Harley Quinn.
Specifically line 16.
Sorry.
Do you see where Ms. Bredehoff asked you to describe for the jury what took place on May 21st, 2016?
I see that.
And do you see that your testimony is reflected about May 21, 2015?
Yes.
That follows? Okay.
Yes.
Now let's turn to page 4804
See, with someone so squirrely like this, you got to make sure you
at line 14.
you cut off all the avenues of BS, right? 'Cause
4804.
wherever there's like a little angle of BS, she's gonna try to wiggle out. Like,
Starting at line 14
Yes.
I really don't know.
through 4805, line 4.
Now she's having to read it all.
Going to what line?
Line 4 at 4805.
Take your time.
Do you see that you're testifying that defendant's exhibit 725, which is reflected on the right side, reflects spilled wine on the floor in Penthouse 5?
That's correct.
Okay. And defendant's exhibit 512 and 725 seem to be different versions of the same picture, don't they?
That's correct.
So which is it? Which one was taken on December 15th, 2015, or May 21st, 2016?
If you remove the redacted metadata, you can find out. It's right there.
Or if you're telling the truth, you would know.
Recognize a portion of of spilled wine on a floor, and I'm supposed to know off the top of my head when you've
No.
lived through 5 years of this stuff? I don't think so. That's not how that works.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Ms. Hurd, at the beginning of your cross-examination
Your
last
Honor, may we
week,
approach?
Yes.
She's killing my case. Camille is just killing. How long do we have to go through this? Is it lunchtime, Your Honor? Can we go to lunch? I need to talk to my witness. She's being destroyed. This is hell, people. This is hell. This is what it is. When you're in trial and things are and shit just hit the wall. Number one, why would you're calling her up again after that bad cross the first time? She's up there again. Lethal Latin. I want to be a lawyer now so I can catch liars. Well, she is caught. She is caught. Camille's got a nice little flow going. So they're jumping up. I think they're going to argue about scope again, because that's where I'd be arguing, like, scope. We got to limit the scope, because right now she's being just bludgeoned to death up there. So right now,
All right, ladies and gentlemen in the gallery, I would ask that there be no words or no phrases, no words, no sounds at all coming from you. If I hear one more sound, I will clear the gallery and we will continue this testimony without anybody in the courtroom. Understood? Good. All right, your next question.
people are making noise. in the
Ms. Hurd, at the
gallery.
beginning of your cross-examination last week, I showed you an audio where you told Mr. Depp to tell the jury, tell the judge, tell the world that he is a victim of domestic abuse. Do you remember that?
That's
Maybe
correct.
call
And you
police.
testified you found it hard to believe that Mr. Depp would tell the world that he's a victim of domestic abuse, didn't you?
I said I find it hard to believe that he would do that, knowing that he himself had beat me up for 5
No, you
years.
did say that.
But he has told the world that he's your victim of domestic abuse, hasn't he?
Well, he started to say that only recently. He didn't make that claim up until very recently. So when we signed our divorce agreement and we signed a statement saying that neither party had ever said false claims for financial gain, it was relevant and important to me because I was the only one making the accusations. I was the only one making those claims. He wasn't doing that at the time, and he signed his name to it.
You didn't expect as many people to show up and testify on his behalf that did you?
Incorrect.
When you told this jury under oath that you never assaulted, actually, strike that. Sorry. When you told this jury under oath that you punched Mr. Depp because you thought of Mr. Depp pushing Kate Moss down the stairs, you didn't expect Ms. Moss to agree to testify that never happened, did you?
Incorrect. I know how many people will come out of the woodwork to be in support of Johnny.
So
It
you
is
think
clear
Ms.
by this
Moss
courtroom
needs
how
to
many
come
people
out
will
of the
do that.
woodwork to testify for Mr. Depp?
Everybody who was around in the 90s and the early aughts knew that rumor. I had heard that rumor from multiple
So
people.
she heard a rumor.
Of course, that's what flashed through my head when my violent husband not only swung for me, but all of a sudden swung for my sister. Of course I thought of that. I did not expect her to show up or not expect her to show up. It didn't matter. It doesn't change what I believed at the time when we were on the stairs and I thought he
believe
was
the
going to kill my
lie.
sister by pushing her down the stairs.
You told this jury under oath that Mr. Depp was aggressive and trashed a trailer in Hicksville. You didn't expect the manager of the Hicksville property, Morgan Knight, to come forward and testify that was untrue, did you?
Incorrect.
She's
I've already been
closing the
through
door.
trials with this man. I know how many people will come out in
She's
support of
closing the
him.
door.
When you told this jury under oath that you had no idea that the paparazzi would be at the courthouse
Closing the
on
door,
May
people.
27th, 2016,
Well,
you didn't
everybody
expect
else
a
is
TMZ
lying.
employee to show up
Everybody
to
else is
testify
lying.
that TMZ had been alerted that you would be at the courthouse and knew exactly which side of your face to take a picture of. Did you?
Everybody's lying.
I know how many people will come out and say whatever for him.
Everybody's lying.
That's his
You
power.
see?
That's why I wrote the op-ed. Is I was
Everybody's
speaking
lying.
to that phenomenon. How many people will come out in support of him
Everybody's
and will
lying.
fall to his power? He is a very powerful man, and people love currying favor
She
with
doesn't know- she
powerful
doesn't
men.
see how it
Currying
And I know
favor
that
and
firsthand. I've
risking
lived
jail
it.
time for committing perjury?
Excuse
see?
me? I didn't hear your
You
question.
didn't hear
Excuse
my
me.
question?
Ms. Vasquez, if you do mind,
Curry-
please just repeat the question. I didn't hear you.
Curry favor and commit perjury in this courtroom
I have
for
seen
a
people
powerful
do this.
man?
I have seen people do this
You see?
time
We've seen
and
people
time
do this.
again.
Everybody's committing
That's why I
perjury.
wrote the op-ed.
This is
You
exactly
didn't
what
expect
you
Ben
wanted
King,
to
the
say.
house manager in Australia, to show up from
Everybody.
England.
You want
He flew from
everybody.
England to testify that Mr. Depp's fingertip was found exactly where he said it would be. Did you?
There it is.
I have never heard Johnny testify
is.
to knowing where his finger was, or really, frankly, making a claim that he knew where it was
Everybody's
when it was
lying.
Found.
Everybody's
I've
lying.
never heard Johnny claim that.
You didn't expect
Johnny
Keenan
doesn't-
Wyatt.
Johnny has never
Ms.
actually
Heard.
said that.
Ms. Heard.
And
I think the
and
jury
he-
could,
yes.
Ms. Heard, there's no question pending.
Shut up.
You didn't expect Keenan Wyatt, Mr. Depp's longtime sound technician, to show up and testify that Mr. Depp is not being fed lines through his earpieces, but instead music, did you?
Not that it matters much, but of
She's
course.
going through all
of course
the
I did.
lies. All
I
the
know how
lies.
his employees treat him.
So you
I know how
probably-
his team treats
So you
him.
see
Of
all
course
the
I
lies,
expected that.
all
Okay,
the
so you
lies.
probably expected Isaac Baruch to come and testify for Mr. Depp, right?
All the lies are being exposed.
I'm not sure I thought about that.
She's just running through them
But
all.
you didn't expect Mr. Baruch to weep for Mr. Depp after what you've put
She's
him through
defaming
and
everybody
so many
now.
others with your lies.
I
did you?
relate to Isaac because he and I are
There's
the
no
only
further
ones who have
questions, Your
cried
Honor.
on this stand.
Nothing further.
All right.
You see
Correct.
that? So
Redirect.
that's the thing. Everybody's lying. Everybody's lying except for you. Everybody's got something to gain. Everybody
Thank you, Your Honor.
loves Johnny.
If Mr. Baruch
Believable.
felt misled, who misled him?
He's got 15
Johnny,
15 minutes.
and I don't blame him. I don't blame him from crying. This is horrible.
Ms. Vasquez has suggested that you faked bruises on your face.
Yes.
Is that true?
Absolutely not. I didn't need to.
Did you ever fake an injury caused by Mr. Depp?
No.
Is any of the evidence of your injuries that has been put to the jury in this trial fake?
No, absolutely not.
And to the extent that there may be some confusion over when a picture of spilled wine was taken, why might that be?
Objection,
Because there's so
lack of
many-
foundation.
Overruled.
Because there's so many incidents of violence. There's so many pictures. There's so much evidence. Most people don't have this kind of evidence for years.
Yes,
5
and Johnny has it.
years.
Johnny
And when I
has
was
it.
saying that to
He doesn't
Johnny
have it.
on the phone in that recording, I was saying for years, this has been going on. And I have pictures, we have texts, we have everything. Normally you don't get this amount of evidence. That's what I was pointing out to Johnny. It would be crazy to try to challenge this in this way. It's crazy. It's easy to not know the context of a picture of spilled wine because there are so many more important details, pictures, and also so much I didn't photograph, so much I didn't have the presence. of
Objection,
mind to document.
non-responsive.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Did Mr. Depp abuse you physically,
Yes,
verbally,
yes,
emotionally,
yes,
psychologically?
yes.
This is exactly what you want. You want it all to be on her. She's saying it. That's exactly what you want to be.
How did the threats that Mr. Depp made against you individually years ago resemble what
Hail
you've
Mary.
endured as a result of the Depp-Waldman statements?
Beyond the scope of cross, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Johnny promised me he would ruin me, that he'd ruin my career, he'd take my life from me. Death was the only way out. And if I got out, this is what he'd do to me. He'd make me think of him every single day. He promised me global humiliation. You saw those texts. What he couldn't do, the work of one individual, meaning Johnny, when he was inviting a disgruntled employee over for a spot of
Objection.
purple to
Non-responsive.
fix my flabby ass up, that
starting to
revenge
speak
that
about
he
crazy
sought
stuff.
back then was just what he could do as an individual, calling the studio to get me fired, trying to block him.
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation, speculation, hearsay,
all in
non-responsive.
I'll sustain as to non-response.
Yeah, see, told you, non-responsive.
Ms.
You
Hurd,
should just
how
listen
did
to the stream.
those things that you just testified to that Mr. Depp did, how did those resemble what happened to you after the Depp-Waldman counterclaim statements were made?
Those are
Objection, Your
just-
Honor, lack of foundation.
She's,
Overruled.
thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
those are just an echo of what I'm living through today. It's like what
the
I'm
judge
living
knows
in
that
right now.
she's-
What you see in this courtroom is an
this is
echo.
her last
This
gasp.
courtroom and the
She's
other
giving her a
courtroom
fair
he dragged
shot.
me into to do the same thing again. That's
Another
just an
courtroom.
echo of the violence and the abuse that I suffered within our relationship. The campaigns to have me fired, the blocking me to try to ruin my career, the threats he's made to humiliate me globally are being lived out in real time in front of you, ladies and gentlemen, for the past 6 weeks. and for the whole world since our camera's here.
No further questions. Thank you so much, Amber.
All right, Ms. Hurd, you can have a seat next to your attorneys. If I can have the attorneys approach.
Like that's it. They got 10 minutes late. My calculator got 10 minutes on the clock. All right, so that was it. That was it. She got her ass beat up again. Wow. So, at this point, we're going to the jury, people. Looks like we're going to the jury. What do you guys think? She's drowning in real time. Yeah. So we all understand the reason why cross-examination went that way. Well, first, the cross-examination was obviously limited to the rebuttal case. So we couldn't bring everything up. We just had to stay with the rebuttal stuff. That's number one. So number two, what Camille did was use that time for the rebuttal stuff for two main points. It's not the case the narrative she wanted the jury to get, and I'm not sure if you guys got it too, but the narrative she was trying to give to the jury was that this is not a he said, she said case. All right. This is not that. What this is a she said versus what everybody else is saying. So first, trailer park guy, right? She says one thing, trailer park guy says something different. The next, this person says something, she says something different. The next, she said something, this person says something different. TMZ says, guy says something different. Everybody, right? Then you throw a little bruise. Here's the bruises you said you had, right? Here's the next day. There's no bruise. So, and now I was wearing makeup the next day. I was doing this, right? All of these pictures of her with no bruises the next day and all that stuff, right? So now at the end, the climax, the questions that Camille was asking at the end, this person's got to be lying. This person's got to be lying. This person's got to be lying. And this person's got to be lying for us to believe you. And her thing is, everyone is lying because they are associated with Johnny. The TMZ guy's lying. Everybody's got a motive to lie. And this is where this was the narrative cross-examination wanted to get over. Now, I'm not sure if she did it effectively.
Your Honor, the counterclaimant Amber Heard rests.
So that's it.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard all the evidence you're going to hear in this matter. What I propose doing is to go ahead and give you the rest of the afternoon off so you can have a good restful afternoon and evening, and we will do closing arguments tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., and then the case will be submitted to you for deliberations. Just to give you a little logistics of how that will go, tomorrow I won't give you a time limit as far as how long you can deliberate in the afternoon into the evening. I will tell you, within reason, I do not serve dinner, so keep that in mind, okay? You will not be deliberating on Saturday or Sunday or Monday, because Monday is a holiday. I would like to have you back here Tuesday morning, at least by 9 o'clock. If you want to come earlier, that's up to you. You can decide as a group if you want to come earlier than 9 o'clock, but you have to be here at least by 9 o'clock just to resume your deliberations again. And again on Tuesday night, and if you have to go to Wednesday or Thursday, that the time that when you take your breaks is up to you, as long as you take them together, as far as not having any deliberations unless all of the jurors are in the room at the same time. When you take your lunch is up to you. And then again in the evening, within reason, I'll let you go as long as you'd like to go. Okay? So have a good evening and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Okay? Do not discuss the case with anybody. Don't do any outside research.
That's it, people. We're going to the jury. We're going to hear about jury instructions. So Charles says she defines abuse in her stories, so that is untrue. The known toxic behavior. I have to figure out if that is abuse as a juror. Yeah, I think they did. Well, we're going to see if they define it within the jury instructions. I want to see if they define the word abuse in the jury
We'll go ahead and take a modified lunch recess just till 12:50. We'll come back at 12:50. We just have a few jury instructions left we have to do. Make sure we get the verdict form taken care of. I want you to review the laptop that we have mocked up and make sure everybody agrees what's on it. And also I want you to look through all your exhibits and make sure we're all on the same page. Before you leave, I'll make sure you have copies of the jury instructions in the order that I'm going to read them, and you should be able to prepare for your closing arguments for tomorrow, okay? All right, we'll see you at 12:50 then.
All right.
Wow. So we have it. So we have it. Wow. Oof. So they're coming back for jury instructions. All right. So I'm going to stay for another 10 minutes, answer any questions that I can within that time frame, because I know there may be a lot of questions So if you got questions, definitely let me know. Let me run through some super chats just to acknowledge and to make sure people know that I've seen them. We did respond to them during the stream, but I just want people just to see their super chats were acknowledged, make sure I got everybody. This is Desperate Last Gas. Some of these super chats you're going to see that can come up before. Amber literally demonstrated everything Dr. Curry. Yeah, we saw all of these. So all of these we have seen. This one I answered in full. The contrast between the two was so damning. I was like, wow, what the hell? I mean, your experience, it's a generic jury believing. No, it's just not. That's just not happening. I just don't say. This is never a good look when you make a doctor put on their glasses. Yeah, we went through all, just to let everybody know, we went through most of these, just going through them again, just so people can know that if just in case they have any questions, is testimony abuse given immunity? No, we went through that one. Question: if JD's attorney was acting as JD's agent when he tweeted, isn't the truth a valid defense? Absolutely. Doesn't Amber Heard have to prove JD was never abused? No. JD, well, she would have to prove. It's interesting. The claim isn't about whether she approved JD. I mean, whether she abused JD. It was whether JD abused Amber. So they don't have to prove it, but they're proving it anyway. Bro, love your content. Amber crying is so cringe. Yes. She has a huge issue with all the real victims of abuse. She needs to stop lying. Stop it, Amber. Yeah. I think it's clear she's, I hate to say this about somebody who's telling their story, right? Who's saying this happened to me, and it does bother me every time I kind of say it, but I got to be straight up and just be honest with the facts that I'm seeing in front of me. And the facts that I'm seeing in front of me is that she's not. It doesn't seem like she's being honest. It just doesn't. I'm sorry, people. It just doesn't. And I just don't think she's a real victim. I think she's been, I think she's manufacturing stuff. Thank you for the awesome analysis. Thank you. I'm Kington for $10. Why would you? Yeah, I don't know why they gave him a second crack. I just don't know. There were a lot of people there, yet not one person cooperated. Yeah, and that's essentially what we saw on cross, right? The whole cross examination was everybody has to be lying. Everybody has to be lying. And that's what I think the theme of my closing would be, right? To believe her story, these are the people you have to disbelieve. And that's a long list. I appreciate you being unbiased. Thank you. I appreciate it. This is why you don't have a second bite at you don't let him you don't give a second bite at your client. Yeah, this is murder. Yeah, I don't know why they did that. Her excuse that she couldn't have done more sounds like OJ saying he would have killed his wife differently. But I think she got her on that question because remember she was like, if I could do it, I could have done it so easily. But hold on, didn't you testify earlier that you didn't know how to do it? Bingo. That's a bingo. Camille going at her with a howitzer. I think I know what it is, but I've never seen it written out. What a relentless, brutal, efficient cross. Yeah, but we that's what we expect from our girl, right? We expect that from Camille. Ain't nobody. If Camille's going to give the cross, we expect her to cross, right? We expect Camille to make it happen. Right? I don't think anybody's being fooled but Camille's going to make it happen. I expect Camille, whenever Camille gets up there, I'm expecting a good cross. The more she talks, she's opening the door for more questions. Yes. What do you think about the odds of JD winning? I'm at 70-30 for JD. I salute the jury. I could not have remained a juror. The putrid lying would have triggered me and would have to ask the judge for me to leave. But the thing is that's why they want you on the jury, right? They would have wanted you on the jury because you had that experience. If you don't say I'm off the jury because I think she's lying. No, we want you on the jury because, right? You've heard the evidence. If you can be impartial and hear the evidence and you come to that conclusion, I want you to I want to hear from you. You're the person I want on the jury. Somebody who doesn't have an opinion going in, but then develops their opinion over time, even though it does trigger you. I know, but that's, we're going to ask you to overcome that, right? We're going to ask you to overcome it and be strong to let an injustice go wrong, right? If this is the way you feel, you think she's lying, for you getting off the jury hurts. I mean, helps her, right? It helps her lies because now the people who would have called it out and people say, no, I know this is a lie and I'm going to stop it, they're off the jury, right? So yeah, I would want you on the jury. I want to keep you on the jury. I know that sounds rough and that sounds cruel, but I would ask you to try to overcome that. Say said for $5, my girlfriend wanted to know how they close to the jury. So they're impartial since both parties are celebrities. Do you know how they do it? How they close the jury? How they choose the jury? I don't know why I'm thinking about closing. That's why I keep saying close. That H turned into an L for me. They choose the jury. It's the voir dire process, right? You ask the main things are, do you know these people? Generally, most people are going to know Johnny Depp. You try to find people who don't know them, but then most people are going to know them, then you try to find people without opinions about them, right? I don't really know them. I know them, right? It's just like I could pick up any star. Not Johnny Depp isn't known in sense of everybody follows him. You know, he's an actor, but he's not such an actor where every single person knows everything about him, right? There are certain people who know of him, but don't really know anything really about him. So those are the people who you'd want. Like, I've heard of the name, but I don't follow him. Those are the people you want. And then you also want to limit, when you're choosing the jury, you also want to limit those of you who might have issues with abuse and things of that nature, or experience with victims. You want to try to, because you want just regular people who are going to listen to the evidence and come to the conclusion based on this evidence, not people who have kind of inbuilt biases. So that's what that process is about. You want to really, really try to weed out a lot of people who have those biases. And, sometimes you're effective, sometimes you're not. Thanks for the super sticker. Appreciate it. And here we are. Hobo Jim says, what are the chances they have an answer tomorrow? Sad this is coming to an end. Look forward to your next project. Thank you. It's wild because this trial has been so great. It's been great in the sense of being able to, I always find the best way to teach people things about the law is to have you experience the law with me. Right. So in other words, when I did the Chauvin case, when I did the Arbery case, and now doing this case, it's the practical part about it. Like when they were about to put Amber on, right? When I made the prediction, when we were here, 20-minute calculations, 20 minutes left. You can really only get on one witness. I said the next witness has to be Amber because of the time. And then everybody's shocked it's Amber, right? And that's because and you now, I'm assuming when now next trial, and we start doing those calculations, you'll be more aware of it. You'll be more aware of things like hearsay and why things have come in, why things haven't come in, why the fact that her arrest hasn't come in, right? So there are so many things that you just watching this trial, watching with me, have learned about this trial that that most people aren't going to know and aren't going to have it from I won't call him an expert, but somebody who's practicing within the field. And I think that's what gives us and gives you the enjoyment, right? So
if Mollusk has a pair, come see me face to face. I'll show him things he's never seen before, like the other side of his.
Let me close this. So that was him hitting Johnny yesterday. So my last question before I get out of here. Who do you think? I think Johnny's cross-examination was bad yesterday, but leaving out on this cross-examination, I think it totally wiped out that away. People are going, though, that jury is going to be thinking about this when they're going home. They're going home now for lunch, and this is what they're going to be thinking about, this cross. Last super chat, then I'm out of here. Do you think it's looking better today for John? Hell yeah. Yes. It's looking better for Johnny. Yesterday had good points, but his refusal to take ownership of those taxes were painful. Yes, of course. They were. Yeah. Yes. Thank you for the $10. Yes, 100%. John O'Brien, well said, Nate. An informed citizenry is the greatest bulwark. I think you're trying to hit me here against tyranny. Yes, 110%. And listen, and at first I want to say two things. Thank you guys for the generous super chats. It really helps, especially us as content creators, because to be honest with you, a lot of us couldn't even carry this stream without super chats. Because I could go and produce videos and do well, but produce super chats for these videos, YouTube demonetizes because of the content, right? We're talking about sexual assault, we're talking about all this, so they demonetize them. So unless you're getting Emily Baker numbers or like 50,000 or 100,000 people watching, it really, it's just hard to really do anything with these videos. But I like doing this way. I actually like this because it's a more intimate way to speak directly to the fans and being able to answer questions and not just be seeing a chat just fly, right? There's a lot of questions we answered today where people may not have money to super chat, so they'll throw a question in and I'm able to just pick it up and say, okay, this is, even though I'm not able to pick them all up, it at least gives you a chance to speak to us, to speak to an attorney, where I think sometimes you just miss. Don't get me wrong, I would love to have millions of people watching, but this I think has its advantages, and I think for you, for the people who are watching, I think that it's a plus, and and I've enjoyed it. And we'll be back tomorrow if anything happens tomorrow. But with that said, thank you again for the $5 super sticker. My name is Nate the Lawyer. If you like what I do, don't forget, like, share, subscribe, do all that great YouTube stuff. And I got to get out of here because I'm going to get some lunch. And you can find me either on Joe Neerman. If he's live streaming, I'll probably be there next. I'll be on Legal Bites. I'm going to try to jump on next. And anybody else and maybe I'll see if I can get on Lead Attorney. That's my afternoon lineup. So I like to jump on all of those other streams just to give my opinion. And I like the fact that I've seen it all, so I can go inside there and just tell them, listen, this is how I feel about this, and see and have my opinion challenged, because that's what it's about, right? We come to our opinions and let's go in there and see if we can get a challenge. Thank you, Stacy, for the $20. And with that said, I am out of here. And again, thank you, Stacy Lee. I really appreciate it. My name is Nate the Lawyer. I'm out.